a very managerial level, and he'll tell you about his story, but he's just worked for everything he's gotten, and I have so much respect for guys that do that, and he's all the way to an NBA bench, which if anybody on this call or only on Zoom knows much about how hard it is to get on an NBA bench, especially if you didn't play, it says a lot about Jason and his work ethic and his character and what people think about him. So all that being said, we're really excited to have him on. Feel free to have questions as we go. The format will go is he'll present first, kind of a PowerPoint, and then we'll have conversation and questions as that's going. And then at the end, we'll wrap that part up and kind of talk NBA. And then the second half of the conversation, we'll get into X's and O's. He'll show us some things from the Phoenix Suns playbook. So I will pass it to Cody, and then I'll pass it to Lamont after that, and then we'll go with Jay.
Yeah, it's funny because I actually first time I met Jay was in 2013 when I got hired by the Rockets to be an assistant for their G League team. And the thing that I'll say is, when I first got into this, I had no idea what I was doing, and I learned how to write a scouting report from basically, I don't know if plagiarize is a pretty strong word, right? Especially we got an Ivy League coach on here, but basically looking at all of his stuff. And I, for lack of a better way to put it, completely copied his format, and everything that I do to this day is based on everything that I learned from what he was doing with the Houston Rockets. And then, fast forward, obviously we had the opportunity to work together in Phoenix. And there's one thing I can tell you about Staudt. This guy is detail oriented to the absolute most microscopic level. He literally knows just about every play that may have ever been run in the history of basketball, which it's ridiculous. Now he does need to, when he moved into his office in Phoenix, it was like I swear we killed about 3,000 trees at least, the amount of stuff that he's got saved up. But it's unbelievable that he's got it all in his mind, and it's unbelievable how he's able to articulate the game. And this guy knows more about the game of basketball than just about anybody I've been around. So I always learn from him. So I'm excited to be able to hear him more.
Wow, Cody, you're a pretty good recruiter. I don't know. Thanks for the kind words, but it's an honor to be here today. I really appreciate Lamont and Brian having me on, and I'm sure a lot of you guys on this call know my wife, Katie Young Staudt, who's in the search firm business for college athletics, and a lot of you know her through searches, through her Zoom meetings, through her podcast. I'm married to a great one, and so she's my coach here at home. She's a lot of people's coaches out there in the basketball world. She's a connector, and through her and her contacts, I've got to know Brian this last week, and he asked me to come on, and it's a real honor to be here. And like I told a few of you guys before we started, I think I'll get as much more out of this than hopefully you get from me, but let's all share. Let's all make this an open forum. Stop me at any time when you have any questions, and let's make this as informal but informative as we can.
Yeah, real quick, Jay, that was awesome. Again, excited to have you on. Let me just pass it to Lamont real quick. I know there's some people on the Zoom that he may want to shout out to or acknowledge real quick before we get going, and then let him have his words, and then we'll give you the floor, Jay.
Because I'm so not technically savvy as I should be with this Zoom stuff here, I'll do the shout outs in the end so I can see everybody's mug when we got everybody up there, so I don't miss anybody. But like Jason said, I think just this basketball world is so small, man, and who you touch and the relationships that you have can spread like wildflower in such a positive way. And I've known Katie for a long time, and he's right. She had a good one. It was before she even was where she is today in her career, but she treats me the same way that she did when she was at Bodine's office there in Plano and going for chips and salsa. And so that says something about her and says something about him of the lady that he chose. And then obviously his agency who represents him. I'm very good friends with Bobby and those guys and respect those guys a ton, and don't know Jason personally, but I knew of him and watched his career from afar. And again, just extremely excited and honored to have him on here and have everybody else who's on here be able to share and ask questions. And nothing's off limits here, man. It's organic. If you got to drop a F-bomb like Marty Wilson did all last week, then do what you need to do. Let's just let's have a good time with it.
Okay, awesome. All right, so Brian, you have anything else? Otherwise,
No, you got it. All you, Jay.
Okay. Well, I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a background for myself, and this is going to be short and sweet. This isn't about me, but so you guys can kind of know my my path and the path that continues to grow. So here's my career arc. All right. You'll see all the logos on the right side of the screen. That's a lot of places I've been, right? But we know the coaching world, no matter what level, you're gonna bounce around. But all great experiences. I look at all those logos and can think of multiple stories of places I've been, headaches that were there, great accomplishments. And it's hard to believe 20 years later, here we are, So I started off, as Brian said, as a manager at Texas Tech. I was there from 1995 to 2000, stayed and got my master's. James Dickey was the head coach. I was an 18-year-old freshman when I stepped foot on that campus, and knew we had a good team. Didn't know we had as great a team as we ended up having. We had Darvin Ham, Jason Sasser, Tony Battie, loaded. We went 30-2. We made the Sweet 16 my freshman year, and I kind of caught the coaching bug. Like, didn't know necessarily what I wanted to do, but I knew after being around that this is what I want to do the rest of my life. Was fortunate to be there for 5 years. We transitioned to the Big 12 during that time. Chauncey Billups, Paul Pierce, Eduardo Nahara. I mean, it was a grueling league. It was unbelievable, and I was fortunate to be a part of it and have some great memories. Like a lot of us coming out, what we ask ourselves, what are we going to do when we're out of college? I wanted to coach, but really didn't have any idea what I wanted to do. So I sat around my apartment, surfed every NBA team's website back then, and I looked for any internship opportunities. I sent resumes out to them blind, like we all did as coaches trying to get jobs. I didn't hear anything for a year and a half. And I got a call randomly one day on my answer machine. It was from the Magic. They said, "Hey, we've got your resume here. Would you be interested in flying yourself to Orlando and interviewing for our internship?" And I was like, "Well, yeah, I'll leave in 5 minutes." So anyway, went the next week, interviewed, went really well. Doc Rivers was the head coach. They called me back a couple weeks later and said, "Well, pack your car up and come on down." So packed up my little car, went to Orlando, didn't have a clue about the world other than the little bubble I lived in Lubbock, Texas, because I grew up in a small town an hour away. I'd never been outside of West Texas. And all of a sudden, here we are in the NBA, and I walk in, and there's Grant Hill and Tracy McGrady and Patrick Ewing. Patrick Ewing's last year was with the Magic. Horace Grant. I mean, we had vets, and they were good to me. And so got the internship. After the intern was up after the year, they hired me full-time as a video coordinator. Doc Rivers was the head coach. We had a good team, not a great team. We made the playoffs the next 2 years. And then the final year, we started off 1-10. Doc Rivers got fired in Salt Lake City. I'll never forget it. I was with the team. Started off 1-10. At the end of the year, they fired our general manager, John Gabriel. And the new guy came in and fired all of us. So after 3 years in the NBA, I'm, searching. So was able to land a job in the CBA. It was still the CBA back then with the Idaho Stampede. Coached a year with Joe Wolf in Boise, Idaho. It was great. It cut my teeth in coaching because I had scouting reports. I had walkthroughs. I had to deal with agents. I had to drive the bus. I had to do it all. And I made $600 a month, but it was probably the best investment I made in myself because I actually did it, right? Was able to get back in the NBA the next year. Terry Staudt hired me in Milwaukee, and I was there 7 years as the video coordinator. I worked for 3 different coaches. We had a lot of turnover. We had a front office change. Worked for Terry, worked for Larry Kraskowiak, and worked for Scott Skiles. And it was during that time in 2011, one of our assistant coaches was Kelvin Sampson. And Kelvin left to take the associate head coach job with the Rockets in Houston. And a year later, he helped get me an interview with Kevin McHale, Daryl Morey. And they hired me as the advanced scout in Houston. I was there 4 years. We went to the Western Conference Finals the first time with James Harden. I mean, we were really rolling and hit a skid there that last year. They fired our head coach, Kevin McHale, and then made sweeping changes after the year. After that year, I actually moved to Plano. I did advanced scouting for the Blazers. Terry Staudt hired me there. I worked out of Plano. I went around and watched all the games, did all the play calls, all the scouting reports. was dating Katie at the time. We ended up getting married after that season. We got back from our honeymoon, and I got a call from the Magic, who had just hired Jeff Weltman and John Hammond, our front office guys that I worked for in Milwaukee. The Magic had hired them, and they offered me a front office spot. So I had been my entire career mainly on the coaching side, not on the bench, but, you know, doing advanced scouting, the video, and then thought this opportunity with the Magic was great. It was a good job. We lived in Dallas. I had the whole NBA, scouting players, free agency, whatever, and did it a year. And then sure enough, what happens the next year, I get a call from one of my good friends, Igor Kokoskov, first Serbian, first foreign NBA head coach. He gets a job with the Suns and offers me my dream job on the bench. We had just bought a house in Plano. Looked at Katie, she said, we're going. She gave her blessing. I was excited about it. Come to Phoenix, we get fired a year later. We know how bumpy this profession is. And you know, from going and getting your dream job, getting on the bench, to have the rug pulled out from under you, it's definitely a test. But we landed on our feet. This past season, we stayed here in Phoenix, and I worked for the Wizards as a pro personnel scout. And that's where we're at today. So enough about me. That's kind of my history. But, you know, a lot of guys on this call are grinding out there, and they're wondering, what's my next step? You know, can I do it? There may be somebody on this call that we meet that changes our career arc. We never know. And I'm going to go into that on this next slide. So during this time when I'm doing all this stuff, when I was in Milwaukee with Terry Staudt, we had a consultant named Ken Shields. He was a Canadian coach who coached Steve Nash and some of Canada's great players in their early junior national years. And Terry wanted to hire a coach that was off-site but had a different set of eyes, brought a different set of opinions from the staff. So Ken would come in, spend the week at training camp, would watch the team on TV, would send in reports. And my job is, when he came to Milwaukee, I had to pick him up at the hotel every day. And his best friend was Rick Majerus, Del Harris, old school guys that believe, you know, the game's played the right way, right? And Ken is just like them, a spitting image. Anyway, long story short, I developed a good rapport with Ken, and we stay in touch. A couple of years later at Summer League, I see him. I said, Coach, how you doing? He goes, well, I'm in a little bit of a jam. He's supposed to be the assistant coach for the Georgian national team. The head coach, Gordy Herbert, took a job in France and he had to leave. And Ken, in a pinch, decided he would help him that year and be the head coach. I mentioned to him, do you need any help? I'm here. I'll do whatever. You don't have to pay me a penny. Just pay my expenses. Get me over there. Made a call. A couple hours later, offered me a position, unpaid, to go over and spend 2 months with the team. I did the videos. I did the walkthroughs. What a great opportunity, though, to see Europe and to see high-level basketball. So we did that for a year. Ken did not want to do the job anymore. But the federation, in my short time with them, had asked me about a guy named Igor Kokoskov, who at the time was working for the Pistons, was a young assistant coach, very highly regarded. And they wanted me to go up to him and almost interview him. It was kind of awkward, but they wanted my opinion on what I thought about him. So the Pistons came and played in Milwaukee. I went up to him, introduced myself. You know, we had a good talk, and I brought this Georgian team up and told him that they wanted to consider him for the head coach. Ends up getting the job, and he wants me to stay on that first year with him and be his assistant, and then we'll reassess after that. So we did it. Long story short, 8 years later, we go to 3 European championships. We have Zaza Pachulia, who played in the NBA for a long time. We have Tornike Shingelia, who got drafted by Brooklyn. We have a number of overseas players that have great careers. And in 2015, that last year, we lose to Lithuania, 2 games from going to the Olympics. So I don't want to sit here and bore you anymore with my story, but my point is, picking Ken Shields up at the hotel every day led to a relationship that opened a door that led me to Igor, that opened a door to get me on an NBA bench. From a manager to all that to here today, it can happen for you. So I know a lot of stuff's going on in the world, and we all have moments in our career where we question ourselves: is this really worth it? Is it too hard? Can I get just a normal 9-to-5 job and be happy and make ends meet and have a life? It's hard at times. You question yourself, you question the ride, but you gotta stick to it. You gotta have stick-to-itiveness, and we gotta keep branching out and making the best of our relationship. So I hope somewhere in all of that gibberish that maybe can inspire you when you're down, because it can happen. And we're all going to have career quakes. We're all going to be high at some point, and we're all going to get kicked on our ass at some point on the floor. And we got to pick ourselves up, and we got to help others that are down to help pick themselves up. That's part of the coaching fraternity. So anyway, enough of me. That's that. So this past season, I worked for the Wizards for Tommy Shepard, not in a coaching capacity, but in a front office role. And my job was to go around all the teams in the NBA. And on the West Coast, I went to probably 30 Suns home games. I was at the Lakers, Clippers, Sacramento, Golden State, Portland games. I was at games 4 or 5 days a week. And I also had to evaluate the D-League and their young players that, some diamonds in the rough that could be better in a couple of years. So my job is mainly to get intel on guys. And it's no different than probably a lot of you guys when you're recruiting high school players, right? You want to know what makes them tick. What's their circle like? How do they respond to adversity? Here's the traits here I've got listed. So, number one is character. What's the kid made of? Does he have a work ethic? If practice is at 11 o'clock, is he going to show up at 10:58 if a coach doesn't make him be there at 10:30 to get shots up before practice? Is he going to leave right when the whistle blows to end practice? Like, is this a passion for him, or is this just a job? Is he coachable? How does he respond to hard coaching and adversity? All right. We're scouting college level kids, 18, 19 years old, same guys a year or two older than you are recruiting for colleges. It's hard to develop leadership in young kids, right? They don't know how to lead. And we as coaches have to try to train them to lead and put them in hard situations and try to develop mental toughness. But we all know it's getting harder with this generation, right? There's so many distractions. They're worried about social media. They're worried about their brand. There's just so many things. Their attention span, if you ask me, is not anywhere close what it used to be 10, 15 years ago. Like, how do you get to the guy and how do you make him click? We want to know that stuff. What kind of teammate is he? Is he all about himself? Or is he willing to give up some of himself to make his teammates better? Is he passionate about the game? I kind of hit that. Does he show up 2 minutes before practice? Another thing we try to dig into is how will money and the NBA lifestyle affect the player? You could come from, a wealthy household. You can come from nothing. I don't care who you are. If you get a lot of money put in your pocket, you're going to change somehow to get the ones that had it good or the ones that had it rough. And you can factor that into the NBA when they get that money and the lifestyle and the women and all the things that come along with it, the Ritz-Carltons, the airplanes, chartered. It's a great life. And so we're trying to dig down, because when you give a guy potentially 30, 40, $50 million in their second contract, even more, you want to know how that player is going to respond. Is he going to lay down on you and quit and just get on the gravy train, or is he going to perform? We want to know what his support system's like. Who's he close to? Who is influential in his circle? All right. Is he more worried about his brand, social media? What type of leadership ability does he possess? So this is all kind of tied in. When Brian was talking to me about stuff for this presentation, he wanted to know what we're looking for in players. So this is for free agency. This is for the draft. And, a lot of these questions that we ask, we know the answers to before we ask them. There's a lot of rehearsing going on between the players and the agents, right? Because they know, especially with no workouts right now, that they're being judged more on the Zoom call than they ever have in their life. And so they want to say the right thing. They don't want to slip up. But, there are questions that we bring up that we know the answer to, and we want to see how they're going to respond. Are they going to fidge on the truth, or are they going to own up to it? Everybody's got issues, or most players do, that need to be addressed at some point. So that's kind of the background of what we're looking for. Not a lot of secret sauce questions, but our our job as scouts is to dig in and try to find anything we can. Just like my wife, when she digs in on coaches and does character checks and background checks, that's our job as NBA scouts for any prospect that we're going through. Where does the intel come from that we get? We talk to their current college coaching staff. And a lot of times when you ask the tough questions to the coach, and rightly so, they're protective of their player because they don't want any information coming back to them that's going to damage them when they leave, that's going to hurt them in future recruiting. We're aware of that. But just like you having relationships with your players, we've got relationships with these coaching staffs that we know that they can trust us with the information and tell us the truth. And all these people on this list, somebody's going to say something different than the other, and somebody's going to give you a nugget that you weren't thinking of, right? We talked to the strength and conditioning coach. We talked to the athletic training staff. We talked to administration, other coaches who coached against that player, other coaches who recruited that guy. All right, high school coaches, AAU coaches, and we talked to NBA players they may have crossed paths with. So everything's fair game, right? It's in-depth deal, and there's so much money on the line and so much planning that goes into this that we have to get it right. We can't invest our money in something that's going to come back and bite us. Anybody have any questions so far? Please open it up. I don't want to talk the whole time.
Jay, I got a question for you. This is Lamont Smith here. So you're not only talking about, the guys that are in the draft, but you're also talking about free agents as well.
Yes, no doubt. And I think you saw all those logos I had on my deal. I've been everywhere, right? I think in this role that serves me even better because I've got strong relationships at both the coaching and management level across the league, right? And so you guys know within your circle of friends that you can really trust that when you really need the tough information, you know who you can go to that isn't going to just BS you.
Right.
Yeah. So my job is to try to dig in and see, has this guy changed since he's been in the NBA? You may have a bias against a player because he didn't play hard or it didn't work out, that another assistant coach on your staff may say something different. And it's not saying you're wrong or he's right, but it's the more opinions and the more data you get, we put it all in the bowl and mix it up.
How transparent are, say you're trading for a guy from the Bulls? How transparent is their organization with coming off information? Or does that go back to more relationships and who you know within that organization?
I think ethically, like I'm not gonna go to beat the information out of a coach that's currently on that staff, right? There's an art to getting this information. If any GM knew that, I was coming to you and you had a player that had 8 off the court issues and, was a red flag from the minute I brought his name up, they're not going to want you to tell all that because they're trying to move that player and they're trying to paint the picture like he's not a problem because they want to get off the money. So there's a little cat and mouse game with that. You got to be able to, to sniff it out. But what's great is when, you have a fired coaching staff that coached that same player before, or you had a guy that left and took another job that you really trust, you can get that information. It may not be all of it, but it's not just going to be, gumdrops and rainbows with what they tell you about the guy. So it's all relationship based. There's an art to it, but it may be a trainer that you worked with before. Like say, hey, that's what I'm saying. Somebody's going to tell you something if you've been around this long enough and you have good relationships.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yep.
Coach, can I ask a quick question, if you don't mind? So let's say if you don't have anyone in your circle that you trust that has accurate information, how do you juggle between different biases and variations from what you hear? Like the AAU coach might tell you something, the high school coach might tell you something else. How do you juggle that without having any accurate information that you trust from your circle?
I think you've got to, in your instance, you've got to try to get face to face with the kid and try to look into his eyes and have a conversation and go with your gut, right? There's a risk to any of this at any level, right? I'll never forget Coach Sampson has a great saying, and I think it's applicable to the NBA, but I asked him one time, I said, what do you do if you're 50-50, on recruiting a player? And he says he gets his assistant coaches around the table and he asks them, would you rather coach him or coach against him? That's kind of the deciding vote, right? And so I don't know that I can totally answer your question, but I think if you're, everybody, I don't want to say everybody, a lot of kids have issues at any level, right? And I mean, we're seeing it in our country. Different kids come from different backgrounds, and I think we can be way too easy to label a guy and just, say he's this or that, when a lot of these kids need their arms put around them and they need to be developed. So I think we've got to keep that in the back of our mind too, right? We're not going to get a perfect polished product a lot of times, but I think you as a coach, after doing your research and having that conversation, you got to be able to decide, can I have an impact on him? He's not perfect, but if we get him in our structure and our support system, we can make him better. We can make this work. I think it's a great question. There's risk at every level. Our risk is, do we sign a guy with baggage to 40 million? What happens if it doesn't work? There's some risk involved in this for sure.
Hey, Jason. Hey, Jason, Kareem Brown here from Niagara County. How far back are you guys going
We try to get as much as we can, right? So that's a good question. A guy may be 30 years old and hopefully you have some continuity. It may not be at that same job, but at other jobs where you've kind of built a database file on this kid from when he was in the draft in 2013, right? And now we're at 2020. So we keep trying to get all the information as they're going along and build that file up. But, it may be, hypothetically, I met you on this call. I didn't know you before. And, you coach Mark Gasol back when he was with the Grizzlies. We developed a little bit of a rapport, and you tell me something I didn't have. So to answer your question, we're trying to get as much information as we can from whomever we can that have touched these players. I don't know, in high school, I'm sure you guys are doing the same thing. You're trying to get to the AAU coaches. You're trying to get to their family members, to the people in their circle.
Well, that's kind of my, as a college coach, I don't know how much information or how much relevant information like 8th grade or 7th grade years would be. Right. So my thought with you is something like that important to you or not important to you, or their freshman year in high school important to you or not important to you?
I would say they're, if you had like a really blue chip guy that was a top 10 national player that we knew was going to be an NBA player within 1 to 2 years of college, we would try to go, early high school and try to see, because a lot of these kids are so heavily influenced and people trying to get their hand in the pie, as we know, people around them. I wouldn't think for the most part you need to go that far back, but I'm an information guy. If there's something happened to the kid in 8th grade, lost a parent in a car accident or whatever, I think you want to dig in and try to find out as much you can about the player.
Coach, quick question. Derek Brooks, Merchant Marine Academy. Assuming the NBA goes back to allowing high schoolers to enter the draft, how difficult does that make your job, not having the extra 1 or 2 years of film? And then the second part, are you a proponent of that?
To answer your question, it's going to make it even harder. And listen, when you're what people fail to realize is, we had DeAndre Ayton as a number 1 overall pick here in Phoenix. The guy has Hall of Fame potential, right? The guy, you just, when you draw up a big man with active feet and everything he does, you see what could happen, right? These guys are kids. And what people fail to realize is when you draft an 18 or 19-year-old kid, number 1 overall or number 5 overall, they're going to bad teams. So they go to bad teams. They're not set up to win. They're not set up really to succeed on a team level. And then, when they say the rookie wall, these guys hit the rookie wall. DeAndre had it for 20, 25 games. And, it's just, you play 2 games a week in college. You play 4 games in 6 nights in 4 different cities in the NBA. Like, there's so much to go on. So I don't want to sidetrack your question. My point is, even the great ones, after a year or 2 of college, don't know what's going to hit them. And so now if you go to the straight out rule in another couple years, which could happen, it just really limits the availability of information we have to make decisions. And it's going to make it harder. And listen, a lot of these NBA owners, they want microwave success, right? They don't care that you have 7 or 8 guys that are 21 or under in a league where only men really win big. You look at the Clippers, they're not developing players, they're men, right? Montrezl Harrell, I can go on down the line, Kawhi Leonard, Paul George. Like we had 19, 20-year-old kids in Phoenix playing that type of team, and it wasn't really fair to them or us, but we showed up every day. We tried to make those guys better. But expectations and instant microwave success, it doesn't go hand in hand with 19-year-old kids for the most part. There's how many Kevin Garnett's have come out and played like that, right from the start. Kobe Bryant, you can name 4 or 5, but I really worry about it because a lot of kids, now you've got the G League component, which we'll talk about. That's more of a direct path. They're not ready. One thing I'll give the Houston Rockets a lot of credit for, me and Cody both worked in that organization, and they were so committed to the G League. I can name player after player. And a lot of guys, honestly, they view the G League, if you're a high pick, as almost like punishment or, you don't think I'm good enough. And they put up a little resistance to it. And you have to really talk to them and let them know, like, we're not sending you down there as punishment. We're going to send you down there and you're going to play 35 minutes a night as opposed to sitting on the end of the bench and eating popcorn. Like, you're going to go down there, work on your game, and you're going to develop. And Clint Capella is a great example. He played the entire season his rookie year with the Rockets at RGV, except for a couple of times we brought him up for a game or two. And the guy got $80 million a couple years later because he went down there with the right mentality and worked on his game. Chandler Parsons played in the D League.
Montrez
Harrell. I mean, Montrezl Harrell is going to be a free agent this summer, and he's going to get paid. So Cody can attest to it. It's how important it is as an organization, and the communication from the coaches to the players that, hey, this is in your best interest. So it's going to be even more interesting now that this G League option is coming out with these blue chip guys, and obviously it's kind of like a stopgap year for those guys until they can get in the draft. But people don't realize how good the G League is now. The last 3 or 4 years, I mean, I can give you 1,000 names literally in a database of guys that are 6'6" to 6'8" with long wingspans and that are athletic. Like, these kids come in and say, "Oh, I'm in the draft. I don't get drafted. I'll just go straight to the G League." Like, the G League is hard now. There is good talent down there, and we've seen multiple teams call guys up, guys that aren't even two-way players under their own team, and it's going to make it even harder. So yes, it's a great avenue for these kids, but I think a lot of times the kids just think, "Oh, I'll go down there and I'll be in the league in 2 years." It's hard. Cody coached down there. He can tell you.
Coach.
There's no doubt. It is a grind. The interesting thing too, like, because the G League has that high school path now, right? And I would love to hear Staudt's opinion on that. My daughter is shushing me. I have to leave the room. Yes, I got you, baby. It's all you. But I'd love to hear his opinion on that because, you look at the worst G League team record-wise last year was the Greensboro Swarm. And then you go down the list of the guys on their roster, right? They had the Martin twins from Nevada, good players. Ray Spalding, who Jay and I had in Phoenix, outstanding player. Kobe Simmons, former 5-star, has played in the NBA here with the Grizzlies and done a good job. They had Dwayne Bacon, right? They had Joel Berry, won a lot of college games. So now tell me, you got Jalen Green or Isaiah Todd or these high school kids, on a random February, they're gonna be going and they're gonna be lacing them up against those guys. And that was the worst G League team. Right? Now imagine what happens when you meet Montrezl Harrell and he's ready to bite the rim off.
No, I couldn't agree more, Cody. And Montrez, we had him in Houston. He went down to the G League, but one thing about Montrez is he never lost his chip, right? He didn't play a whole lot at first, but the guy's DNA, he has the motor off the charts. Like, he's an undersized 5 that is outmatched height-wise most nights by 3, 4, 5 inches. But he plays so hard and with such reckless abandon that he makes up for it. And again, another prime example of going down there and kind of fighting through the adversity, right? It was not smooth for him at all that first year. And went down there, fought through it, was kind of in the shuffle in Houston, and he got traded to the Clippers, and boom, right place, right time. He took off. So, you kind of use that for your guys. I mean, I try to make all this applicable to any coach, right? Try to visualize if a guy is in a situation that he's just in a bad spot, right? And I think I can connect to this kid. I think I can make it work with him. I know a lot of kids, you guys deal with it. It's got to be tough. I can only imagine with all these transfers now. The tendency is to give in way too early, right? Like, I'm not getting enough minutes. I'm not getting enough touches. They recruited 2 guys at my position coming in. And I think us as coaches, we've got to try to find a way to, number one, communicate, but also challenge their mental toughness. Because I think that we've had a lot of slippage there, right? It's instant gratification. I need to get my numbers to get here, or I need to get my shots to get here, or so-and-so is not passing me the ball. We've got to weather the storm and battle some adversity. And I don't know if any of you guys have thoughts on that, but at least at our level, that seems harder and harder. And I'm sure you guys run into it. And if you got any thoughts on that, I'm all ears, because I'm trying to get something out of this too.
Hey, Jason, I got a question for you. And maybe, it's a lot of college coaches on the line. And again, I don't see everybody here. I'll film through it in a minute here. But for a guy like Dwayne Broussard, right? I know he's on the call. He's at TCU, Big 12 country. And he's got players that think they're going to be pros. Everybody throws out the word, hey, he's a pro. From the college standpoint, from the intel that you take, from all the stuff that you guys have, what are some educational things that they can do for those guys who hey, I want to test the water. Hey, I think I want to do this. I'm not sure. To where as a coach, you don't want to have that bias that he may not be ready, but you want to come to a guy like yourself and say, hey, Jason, what can you give me to help me, tell this guy where he really sits in terms of his draft status?
No doubt. It's a tough line to walk sometimes, right? Because we need to be truthful with these kids. You've got some people that say, oh, the coach, the perception of the coach is, well, he just wants my son back because it's going to make his team better. Whereas you're trying to tell him, like, okay, if you go in the second round, you're not guaranteed of anything. Like, there's a fine line from being picked 20th to being picked 32nd. Like, just that marginal difference. So I think as coaches, one piece of advice I would give, because I've actually helped a couple of people that I used to work with or for with information for their players, is try to develop some relationships with NBA guys that you really trust, and have a network of a couple guys that you can call up and say, hey, so-and-so wants to put his foot in the water. Between me and you, he's not ready, but I need to come with him with facts. I don't need this just to be my opinion. I need to have, a range that you guys see him coming in, so I can be truthful to the parents and to him, And I know it's tough. It's been tougher this year because this pandemic, coaches have not been able to have their hands around their guys, right? And so we've got a lot of influential parents and a lot of influential kids that are getting piped information that is not in their best interest. And again, I use that G League out kind of in their minds, like, well, if I don't get drafted, I'll go to the G League and I'll make it the NBA in 2 or 3 years. I think that's a slippery slope.
No, I agree with you more. I mean, I hear it a ton of times, having been fortunate enough to coach at some bigger schools and got a chance to coach some pros, but guys think that. They just think, oh, yeah, just go to the G League. Like, the G League just giving away money. Like, and it's not that hard. I mean, you have a draft, you have a certain amount of roster spots. You got guys carrying over from last season and previous years, and guys have that misnomer all the time. Like, the G League's just like some rec league they can go play in.
Right. And
hey, I'll jump in there and say, like, I tell guys all the time, I coach 6 McDonald's All-Americans in the G League. So when they're McDonald's All-Americans, I can assure you not a single one of those dudes figured that they were going to be playing for me, right? So, and that's heavy to think about, because they all think that's the red carpet from that point forward, and it really isn't.
Jay, answer this too. Like, is it similar in the G League to the NBA where guys have some locked-in contracts, so there's only so many open spots per season, so to speak?
So I'll say this about the G League, and Cody, feel free to piggyback, but it has gotten better from a pay perspective somewhat. And so what teams are allowed to do now, you can have 15 roster players on the big club. You can have two-way guys, which with those two-way guys, most of those guys will be down with your G League club, but you can guarantee them X amount of days on the NBA roster at a prorated portion of the minimum. So, for example, I'm going to sign Cody Topper. I'm the Suns GM. He's going to go down to Northern Arizona on a two-way contract, and I can guarantee him, $75,000 to $100,000 by the number of days I bring him up. It varies. I don't want to just put that number on it, and I'm not quite sure what the number actually is, but let's just say that for example. But the time he's down at Northern Arizona, he's getting paid a D-League salary. He gets his two-way money when he gets called up to the Suns. So, those guys can make a little bit more money, but we see it more and more where two-way contracts are signed at training camp or at the start of the season, and a team later on finds another player that's better, and they cut the guy, and you have no guarantee. They don't have to guarantee your two-way. Some teams do, but a lot of teams, and most of them actually don't. Because I come across Brian Burton when I saw him at a D-League game at South Bay, and I say he's better than Cody. Well, I'm going to sign Brian and cut Cody. You know what I mean? So I just think that the perception of these guys is that, oh, I've got a two-way, and then next year I'll be on the roster. It's very difficult.
Jason, I got a quick question. Jocelyn Crow from Louisiana Lafayette, and I think Cody kind of touched on this a little bit. Has there been a shift in just, from the word we always hear is momentum, or potential, and getting more experienced guys and getting stronger guys or getting guys with, more maturity. And as that pertains to ownership and general management, just in general, has there been a shift? Aside from the recent stuff, the RJ Hampton and all those guys, but has there been a shift in just the thinking of team building in general?
I think it varies team by team, to be honest. I think some teams, they get a regime change and you get a new president or a new general manager, new coach. A lot of teams will reset and kind of start from scratch. And they want to build, through the draft, through character. They're going to be willing to take their lumps, but, play guys and let them get experience. And hopefully, in 2 or 3 years with, some couple more draft picks, a couple free agent signings and internal growth, they'll make it better. I think your contending teams, I think they don't want to bring a guy in that, is a grab asser, so to speak. They're more like the Clippers aren't going to play any games, right? They're on a mission to win this thing, So I think it's team by team to answer your question. I hope that makes sense. But I think teams that, sometimes need to take a chance. They may know that so-and-so has, some issues in the past, but man, he played 1 year at UCLA and left early. Maybe this is a project we can develop, and they're willing to take a chance on him. I'm just using UCLA, for example. I just think different teams are at different stages and kind of have different points of their franchise arc. If that makes sense.
Yep. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Hey, I just make a comment on how important your draft standing is. And Jay can touch on this a little bit too. Like, we had Josh Jackson. There was a significant commitment made to him because of how high he was drafted, to where, the front office was almost incentivized to allow him to get away with bad habits. And, here we are trying to discipline this guy, but, he could lose trade value if we bench him and things of that nature, right? And so that's the difference from being picked, 3, 4, 5 versus if you slide and drop to like 15. I mean, there's far less of a commitment, because when the general manager commits to drafting you, like, his name is forever next to your name in the books.
Yeah, there's a lot of balls we're juggling, right? We've got guaranteed contracts. We've got, high draft picks that we're trying to make it work. There's just so many underlying conditions, right? I mean, I could give you a laundry list, but yeah, I mean, that's definitely part of it. So there's a lot of balls we're juggling, trying to get guys better, but also trying to win. And that goes back to my instant microwave comment. Can't just throw it in a microwave and in 90 seconds have a finished product,
Hey, Jason, Marty Wilson up at Cal. Appreciate you doing this, man. Quick question in terms of the draft. Who's all a part of it? How much communication does the head coach have with the process? I know some have none. I've heard there's been some clashes where the GM and head coach, they don't even communicate on that. So who's all a part of the draft in terms of scouts and how many different people in different positions?
Well, in DC, we've got our GM, we've got assistant GM, we've got a number of college scouts who most of them live remotely all across the country. So there's a number of Zoom meetings, especially during this pandemic, we've had a lot more than normal years. A lot of different Zoom meetings to kind of go through by position, to rank guys, to try to narrow your list down, and then try to debate. And then you got to kind of see what your roster is going to look like. So-and-so is a free agent. We may lose him. This guy's up. We don't want to pay him what he may get. How you allocate your dollars, you're looking at that. But I would say in our process in DC, we probably got, and analytics have really grown in the NBA too. I mean, these analytic departments are really diving into, numbers at the college level and building their databases up. You can agree with it or not, but it's a big factor. So I'm saying anywhere from 10 to 15 minimum per organization. And like I said, they're all on these Zoom calls. So they're all peppering these guys with questions. This year's a little different. And you made a good point. I think probably most front offices in a way kind of like this, because I've been in situations where, they've scouted a guy all year long, seen him 5, 6, 7 times, sometimes multiple years. And they've got a good, consensus on who this guy is, if they like him or not. And then you bring him into a draft workout and he shits the bed, for no better term. And the coach sees that, the assistant coaches see that, and that's their only opinion of the guy, right? So when you've got the front office saying, oh, but he did this against Cal, and I saw him do this against Arizona, and they're really like steadfast in their belief. The coach, it's hard to take that picture of that guy, 20 minutes into the workout, having his hands on his knees and just not coming in shape. So, you have those tug of war battles a little bit. I can remember when I was in Orlando, this is a true story. My second year, Amari Stoudemire was an Orlando kid. He played at a couple of different schools there, but we brought him in and we had the pick to get him. And he didn't last 10 minutes because he had anxiety. He didn't last on the court, and we passed on him. And it was a catastrophic mistake, to say the least, for who we ended up getting and passing on him. And he came to Phoenix and, was an anchor in many good years of a run. So I know I'm kind of all over the place answering your question, but there's a lot of dynamics into it. And I think they just need to be ready. Be ready for everything, for questions. With next year we're back to normal. They go to these workouts. They've got to be in shape. I mean, it's a job interview. You're going to get questioned in front of multiple people, face to face, and then you're going to go out on the court and have to perform. And you're going to get on a plane from Washington and go to Chicago and do it the next day, and then you're going to go to Philadelphia the next day. And it's hard. It's hard. And again, mental toughness, right? It's as much a part of it as anything.
Hey, are you guys anticipating doing any in-person workouts at all prior to this year's draft?
I don't think so. Last I talked, I don't think so. So it's all Zooms and it's all video work. It's all, what our scouts saw this year. I don't think the league's going to allow it.
Hey, Cody, let me swing one to you. You just brought up a point to, hey, the guys got drafted high. Front office wants this, wants that, but you're coaching him down in the G League. How do you navigate through that stuff? What were some of the things that you could share with us that, how you, were able to kind of, help the kid and help your organization and help your team?
Yeah. Whenever somebody was sent down, a couple things that we tried to do. Well, number one, in Houston, 30 minutes was what we were going to play that guy, regardless of whether he showed up and missed shoot around or anything like that. That was also the big reason for the synergies between the clubs. So when you get down, right, the terminology has to be the same. The offense has to be the same, the defense, all that stuff, so that he doesn't skip a beat, right? And then usually you're going to get a directive. Jay was in charge of, all of our assignments, with Elliot Kobo or D'Anthony Melton last year in Phoenix. And so then he's in direct communication with the staff down there in terms of what the expectations are, what the plan is, how many games is he going to be down there for, if it's a one and out, things like that. And to me, that's huge. And then on the flip side of that is, you're reporting back the other direction, right? So you get information from the parent club and you understand exactly kind of what their vision is for what he needs during that particular stint. And now once you execute or don't execute that, regardless, when he goes back up, is making sure that you disseminate as much information as you can back to the parent club, right? And I mean, the Rockets have the best one-to-one affiliation because, when I went to Phoenix, that like I got hired as the head coach of the G League team after the season had already started. So Jay Triano took over as interim. And so I came in and we were not even really running the same stuff. Jay was trying to figure out his system, right? And he didn't have a training camp. And so, that was the big thing too. When we were in Phoenix, Jay was had experience with that. And so, he was kind of championing that element in terms of, we have to figure out how to appropriately use the G League to maximize our assets. And I think that the Rockets are the best at doing it in the NBA. And, that's a credit to them not being scared to send guys down there. But the last thing I'll say about this is, like, I always felt like it was the Rocket staff. Like, we were an extension of the Rocket staff as opposed to, we were the RGV staff and they were the Rocket staff. I mean, Jay always felt me, it made me feel like included in everything, right? That whole staff did. And then when D'Antoni came in, it was the same. And that's, really how you're able to grow as a coach as well.
And just to follow up for Cody, I mean, you can't emphasize enough how the synergy has to be there between the parent club and the D League. You would send a player down, you have a Suns game on a Tuesday, you'd have a player drive down to Prescott, play a game on Wednesday. The same play call we called with the Suns, he's running down there, so he's learning how to play the point guard position. And you'd be surprised at the number of teams that don't have that synergy. It's critical.
So, fellas, let's do about 2 more questions, just kind of in general, and then we'll let him get into some offensive stuff, and then we'll save all the rest of the questions for the end.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I had one more question. Adam Hood, UTSA. I had a question now. When you guys are doing, obviously you said all the intel stuff. Is it like, if you see like a long cane poly, is it like a life insurance? You know what I mean? Like, again, like, okay, say he smokes weed, that's -5, he's got, whatever, multiple baby mamas, or he does community service, or he does, is it a plus?
Shark diving, open ocean shark diving, or what was it?
I just saw it, like we've been locked up. So, all those movies keep coming on and I'm got this little guy crying right now. You know what I mean? Like, is it kind of like that though? Is it like, okay, this guy's +5, this guy's -2? Like, is it risk analysis like that, or just kind of just?
I think you try to get as much as you can, and then you got to do the old Ben Franklin T-square. Here's the pluses, here's the minuses. Let's weigh the results. And yeah, I mean, sometimes a guy's file can look like a Sears catalog, and other guys' file can be 2 pages. So I mean, it's a good question, right? But I think our job is to bring as much information to the table so the group can have it, and then build a consensus and move forward. So.
Okay, we'll take one more if anybody's got one more, and we'll go to offense.
Brian, I got one. Jason,
yeah,
this is Dwayne Broussard at TCU, and
yes,
just had a quick question about Intel, and I think you've done a phenomenal job today. This is all really good information, and I consider myself to be fortunate because I have a little bit of experience in this area, just because over the course of my career I've had a chance to coach pros, and so when you gather your intel, do you ever find that you know more about the kid and his background than the college coach that's coaching him? And the reason I bring that up is because oftentimes when you go in these meetings and you have these phone conversations with coaches, and I want all coaches to listen to this, being truthful is very, very important for us. But I've been in situations where I have felt like, maybe I didn't know as much, and I felt like I would be compromised if I'd said the wrong thing about the student athlete.
No, it's a good question, and again, like, hypothetically, I could have worked with your trainer at TCU 10 years before, and he told me a nugget that off the cuff comment that led me to this information or to this guy. And point being is I may know something you don't know, but I don't think for the most part we know it before you know most of it as you coach them. Does that make sense?
Right.
I mean,
Right.
I
Okay.
think we're digging in it during the season, and yeah, you know, we may get their AAU coach and he said something about the family background, or, you know, he's influenced by this guy, or, you know, or whatever. I wouldn't say that most of the time we know more than the college coach, but, you know, it could happen. I mean, it's a fair question. It all goes back to relationships. Maybe I know 3 people at TCU that all told me something and led me down the path somewhere, and I found something out. So.
Right, right. Just that, you know, there's times in our position as coaches where we try to protect our players, right?
No doubt. No.
And, you know, you don't want to say too much, but yet you still want to make sure that you're conveying truth. So,
for sure. I mean, you guys are
you know,
put in tough situations sometimes, right? Because you know, we know a lot of these guys, and even the blue chip guys in particular, have a lot of baggage that comes with them, and
right.
You don't want to piss off the wrong guy that's not going to help you get a player down the line, or get back to the kid we're talking about. I mean, trust me, that happens all the time.
Right, right, right.
We're not.
Thank you for answering that. Yeah, I appreciate it. Okay.
Any other questions? Brian, you want me to go ahead and move on? Okay. Okay, so that talks all the front office stuff. I'm going to do a couple things from the coaching side now, so maybe there's some stuff here that you guys can get out of it. As I said earlier, I had the opportunity to work for, I think, the best coach I've worked for in my career, in Scott Skiles, who's not coaching anymore, but he coached 3 different teams, the Phoenix Suns, actually 4 different teams, Phoenix, Chicago, Milwaukee, and Orlando. Had a great playing career, and still to this day leads the league in assists in a game, I think, with 31. That's still a record, and that's been there for 25 plus years. But he was really good, number 1 at teaching defense. But this edit I'm going to show you guys is a draw and kick edit that we had, and I think it's very simple. You can definitely kind of see the progressions in it, but then also tailor it to kind of your beliefs as a coach and as to kind of the program you're running. All right, so this first clip, this video is from 10 or 15 years ago. You're going to see Tyronn Lue, Adrian Griffin. I mean, Tyronn Lue won a championship with the Cavs as Doc Rivers' number 1 assistant. Adrian Griffin's in here. Michael Redd. Kevin Kruger was on a training camp deal. He made the video. Luke Ridnour. Anyway, Joe Alexander here is going to come off a turnout of Lionel Hollins. And this is a draw and kick drill feeding the post. Very simple, but you can see how we build off of it. He's going to hit. He's going to basket cut baseline. And then look at the top of the key. Luke Ridnour is going to pull all the way over. On the dribble, he's going to bring his man over, swing. And we had a rule in Milwaukee where when the ball hit the wing, where the ball is now, where Kruger's catching it, and he passed to the corner, he automatically cuts through, because what do we want to do by doing that? We're going to open up the middle for the corner guy. So he's going to hit, cut through. We want to get middle, get a paint touch, and get a shot. Here's a couple more examples. Here's Adrian Griffin right here, turning out. Charlie Bell passing the ball. He gets away. Why does he want to get away? Because we want to bring his man away from the nail to not offer as much help on the post. Basket cut. Now Charlie Bell's going to pull over to the slot on the dribble. Swing. And our rule was when we hit the corner, he cut through. May not be your rule, but Skiles really believed in that. And it opened up the middle. I mean, think about it. Most teams' defensive philosophy is no middle, right? So how do you combat that? You try to get middle offensively. That's the whole theory behind it. Swing, paint touch, shot. A couple more. And stop me at any time. I mean, a lot of this isn't like rocket science, but there's some good stuff we can get out of it. T. Lue, pass to the corner, cut, get middle, swing, shot. Get middle, swing, shot. And what does it do? The ball starts on one side of the floor, goes to the opposite side, comes back. You get ball movement. So when your play breaks down, you get in a low shot clock situation, you have these draw and kick rules. All right, stop it. Lionel Hollins now is going to set a side pick and roll. We're going to simulate a side pick and roll action. And again, try to get to the paint. Look at Luke Ridnour up here at the top. He's sliding to keep his man away from the nail because we want his man to have to stop the ball. Swing, get middle. Now we're going to add the baseline drive, baseline drift out of it. So all these progressions just come one after another. Paint touch, swing, baseline drive, baseline drift. Couple more. We would do this all the time. Okay, now we're going to start the ball at the top of the floor and get into it with the dribble handoff to the wing. DHO, get downhill, break the paint. Break the paint. Break the paint, shot. Try to get paint touches. That was our emphasis. This stuff's really good, guys. And you can see we drill it 3-man actions. So it kind of comes naturally after we work on it, you know, for training camp and through the season. And mix it up to your philosophy. If you don't believe in passing to the corner and cutting through, you know, tailor it to how you as a staff want to play the game. Couple more here. Anybody have any questions or comments? I'll let the tape run.
Jay, talk a little bit. I know we talked about this yesterday. Talk a little bit about how, which, you know, somewhat self-explanatory, but as the guy's cutting through, obviously he's giving way more of a gap for that person to be able to attack. Yeah, exactly. So, you know, his defender, right, has to honor his cut, because if he doesn't, he can just cut and get the ball back for a layup, right? So by getting out, you're opening up the middle. And our whole philosophy was we want to get middle, go against what the defense is trying to do, stop middle. Get middle, get a paint touch, try to get it to the weak side, get the swing pass to the corner. There's a different example coming up here. Okay, so all the drilling we did, you can kind of see how it transferred in some of our plays, all right? Simple pin down play we used to run, call it double two. And the guy getting the pin down can either come up or go off the double. It's his option. This time he goes off the double. Michael Red, we hit. Ridnour's man jumps to the ball. Ridnour is now getting away. Hit. Swing to the corner for a shot. We'll run it one more time so you can see it without me talking and see how it translates. As we know, if we keep the ball on one side of the floor, defenses can load up, sit on the nail, weak side could be in, and you're not near as effective. Here's a good clip right here. Here's a DHO into some floppy action. Turn the corner, draw the defense. The weak side gambles. They just run up for no reason, and then the corner guy's wide open. So anyway, there's some good examples I thought, you know, are relevant at any level, high school, college, NBA, some drills that you can get your guys in, kind of drill 2-3-man actions, but get the ball moving and not allow the defense to load up. I think it's pretty self-explanatory, but I don't think we can do enough of it as coaches. Real quick, Jay, did you normally have your bigs opposite the ball, or how did you try to do with your 5-man? What did you do with him? Yeah, I mean, so you got to drill the bigs, you know, kind of mirror each other. If one goes baseline, the other guy loops around. We would do that. I didn't put that in the edit, but for sure you can't just get out there and have 3 guards just doing everything. But you know, you may have an unskilled guy that you put at the dunker, and he's kind of just got to work off of that. So I think it's personnel dependent. More teams are stretching their bigs now than years past. So you know, before, just having 2 bigs down on the block, you know, it's not just as easy. I don't know if that's answering your question, but you gotta drill the bigs as well. You gotta drill them.
I've got one more here. Hold on a second. Any questions from anybody? I feel like I'm talking way too much. Okay, if not, last thing I was going to show you guys today is some of our early offense we ran with the Suns. You guys, I don't know how many of you are really aware of how good Igor Kokoshkov, my head coach, was offensively. He won the European Championship with Luka Doncic a couple years ago. He's got really, really, really good offense and good ideas, and I'm going to kind of walk through that with the group. And again, please stop me at any time if you got any questions. I'm going to talk about early offense first. Let me maximize the screen real quick. Everybody see that okay?
Yep.
Okay. The play call that we had is going to be at the bottom of the screen on the left. And when I was explaining to Brian in our presentation yesterday, you got to think of Igor, his terminology, kind of like a football coach, right? So we would drill a number of different actions and have a term for it. And then he could add the 3 or 4 terms together and we could run it. So I'll explain that as we're going. Right now, this isn't a good example of it, but our double drag was actually a play call. It's not a traditional double drag, okay? So this is a good play for Devin Booker. 4-man's the first screener, 5-man's the second screener. You're going to swing it to DeAndre, hit the post, and then rescreen Booker to come back. Here's another example. Ariza, the 4 first screener. He's going to roll, pop and hit the 5, feed the post. And then this time we played the game on the weak side with TJ and Book. One more example. And hit, swing it, get him. Good play for your shooter. And Booker was our best player, so we had a number of plays for him. This time DeAndre slips it, makes the right read, and that's what I was talking about earlier. Try to drill your guys, make them make a play, make them see that. 2 guys jump out to Booker, DeAndre, you slip out. Okay, Oklahoma. This is a big play for us, and we see a lot of teams in college use this. It starts off as a double drag with the 4-man screening. Okay, we're a little sloppy getting into it, but I'll walk you through it. There's the double drag. TJ Warren then gets a screen from 5-on-4 to curl and turn the corner. Okay, you've got a shooting 4-man or a playmaking 4-man. This is a good play. Double drag, 4-man rolls. DeAndre going to get him. He's going to turn the corner. You can play pick and roll out of it. It's good early offense where you give these guys freedom, but freedom within the structure. Oklahoma small, so it's going to be a double drag with the small man being the first screener. All right. Troy Daniels right here, number 30, one of the best shooters on the planet. If I had to pick anybody to win a horse game, it'd be him. He sets the first screen. We kind of give the play away when he's the screener. Everybody in the gym knows it's coming to him, but we still run it. Play breaks down. We get into random high split action. Mix up your personnel combinations, though. Make different guys have to guard in the pick and roll. Oklahoma special. Stop it. Double drag. Ariza goes down like he does before. This time he's going to set a rip on Valanciunas for a possible lob. Not there. Pops back. We got a high-low or make a play. So again,
Jason, you guys got into that high split action. Are you telling them after Oklahoma, hey, we're going to play out a high split, or that's just them playing ball?
Good question. We kind of went back and forth, right? Because we had a young team and we were trying to figure out what was easiest for them. And remember, this season, which was last year, this was the first year that the shot clock on the offensive rebound reset to 14 seconds, because you get the offensive rebound, you throw it out, get it with 8-9 seconds, and everybody's kind of looking at each other like, what do we do? So we we got into this high split action. We said, hey, get into it, throw it to the elbow and play. That was kind of like our secondary action. We kind of fiddled with that. You know, it may be for you just a high pick and roll, whatever your philosophy is as a coach, but we definitely like tried to drill that whenever low shot clock or play breaks down. This is our action with 8 to 12 seconds.
Gotcha.
I think it's going to depend on your personnel and just kind of what you as coaches want to do. But I mean, when you get down against shot clock, you better be decisive. You can't ball hold and just play willy nilly. It's tough. Here's the special again, back pick. Booker this time, instead of coming out, just kind of gets to the mid post and makes a play. Please stop me if you have any questions. Oklahoma touch, again, double drag, different wrinkle out of it. Ariza is the 4, first screener. Okay, same action. We're going to get Ariza coming back. And now we're going to go right back into a pitch back into pick and roll. So see, just that one play, I've shown you like 6 examples of like different wrinkles you can run.
Real quick, Jay, as you're kind of going through these, how did you have was it a hand signal? Was it a call from the bench? Was it always out of ATO, or did the play, like, how did they know Oklahoma versus Oklahoma touch or Oklahoma touch clear?
Good question. I mean, we had hand signals for Oklahoma, which was an O. And if he said Oklahoma small, he would just do this. We would verbalize it as much as we could. But if you look on this clip right here, 11:46 in the first quarter. So this would be a play that we drew off the board to start the game. And so that's something you as college coaches, you have TV timeouts. You may have 6 dead balls a half, right? Or more. You got the 4 medias and then a couple others sprinkled in. If you can be really good out of timeouts, like with wrinkles off your sets, that's a huge advantage for you guys as coaches. I mean, I think it was Tom Izzo years ago said that they charted BOB and SOB plays and would compare what they did against the opponents. So think of your dead ball situations, your ATO plays you can run, and that can be the difference in a close game, you know, by just being able to execute off the board out of timeouts. So this
Hey, Jason, Jalen Little here. Sorry to interrupt.
No problem.
How often do you guys follow a script, throughout the game?
We don't have – it's not like we go in like the San Francisco 49ers used to do with Bill Walsh and said we're running these 15 plays first regardless, the script in their offense. We sit as a staff in our scouting meetings before the game, and Igor used to term elephants. That's kind of the guys we want to attack on defense, whether it's a slow-footed big or, a guy that isn't going to guard, a guy that's not going to fight through screens. That's where you kind of got to rely on your tape scouting, your advanced scouting to know who you want to go at. And then we as a staff would kind of, tailor a lot of these play calls to go at those guys, right? So that's kind of where our preparation before the game came into play. And then, we've got all our playbook kind of broken down where these are plays, we can call for Devin Booker, and we may have 15 of them. And so, he knows going in that Booker's got a bad guy guarding him, and I've got this set of plays here I'm going to make hay off of.
Right.
So,
thank you.
Southern University Baton Rouge Information Technology Help Desk.
Pardon me? That's me?
No, you're good. It was an accident.
Okay. No problem. All right.
Yeah, Jay, I'll just say one thing too that I like that Igor always did was like this is the first play of the game or whatever. First play of the game was always reviewed at shoot around, so it was never just off the board to the floor. It was reviewed.
Good point. And Cody, you may can speak to that. Having coached in the NBA and now this year at Memphis, that just the importance of how you handle your dead ball situations. I think I can't speak to it as much in college, but I've got to think that if you're really good off the board and your guys can execute and come out, that's a huge thing at your level.
Yeah, I think that to me, there's no question. We kind of toyed with basically putting together the menu the same way. Ultimately, that's what we settled on, is putting together the menu the same way that Igor did, based upon the advanced scout, right? And understanding how we anticipated them to guard the actions. And, Igor's the best I've seen at how he's preparing for a game and for those situations because, we ultimately sometimes sit down and we go too raw in these timeouts, I think, in college, right? It's all about playing hard and all these things. And what we lose is an opportunity to really take advantage of it and come off the board and create a catch and shoot 3-point shot right? A quick like duck in that's not a post up, but like a layup, as Igor always used to say, or an opportunity for a drive. And those are the things I think at the NBA level, these ATO situations are going to essentially always create one of those three situations. And I don't think I would ever come out of a timeout in college and just run a normal play, because that's something that we should do during the flow, right? This is an opportunity for us to dial something up specific.
Cody, say those three things again that they look to do in the NBA at ATO.
Yeah, catch and shoot three, right? Like duck in, which is probably third on the list, right? Igor used to say not a post up, but a layup, right? Maybe it's a rip screen for a layup. For DeAndre, we had a play where we literally threw it to this dude right under the basket. And then we called it stampede opportunities with Igor, right? Which is like a attack to catch, like just a play that's going to create a closeout to where when you pass it to one guy, he knows that he's a penetrator.
Thank you. That's great.
Got a couple more here. Just one more point on the ATOs. When I was doing the advanced scouting for Houston, I mean, had the best seat in the house a lot of nights. And one thing I learned when Mike Woodson was the coach of the Knicks, he was so good out of timeouts. You can ask any scout or coach at the time. He had those guys running 2 plays after a timeout. And their best offense a lot of nights was his ATOs, because he had their attention. He had a veteran team, but he would run 2 plays. And think about it, going to the huddle as a coach, being able to draw this wrinkle, we're going to run that first. Second play, we're going to run this, and multiply that by the number of times that you have dead balls. I mean, it's something, attention span we've talked about with these guys isn't high, but I think that's something that you can challenge your guys in practice with and try to be better at that. It's such a huge.
And hey, didn't you guys do that with the Georgian national team? You guys would run 2 plays out of timeouts?
We did it. But I'm telling you, Woody was unbelievable with that with the Knicks. And he had a veteran team, but point being is just like he took advantage of that. And when he coached in Atlanta, same thing, for sure. A couple more here. All right, we're back into Oklahoma. Our terminology for wide pin down is quick, okay? So we call Oklahoma quick. Oklahoma means double drag. The quick means wide pin down. So we're going to set the double drag. 4-man's going to roll to the basket. 5-man's going to wide pin. And we're looking to catch and turn the corner. Got a lob for the 5 potentially. So manipulate all these actions, right? All this is off of one play. Like, we had a gazillion plays, but I'm just trying to show you guys, like, take advantage of the wrinkles. Challenge your guys mentally to be able to execute. And this isn't realistic for a lot of colleges, but I think you can all get better at it at any level. In your practices, simulate 96, 95 with 20 seconds to go.
Jay, what was your shoulder? Was that just a pistol screen?
Shoulder's a back screen action.
A back screen. Okay.
Like a Spain. Hey, Jay, can you, like, the crazy thing that you guys are seeing here that is like unbelievable is that this is all out of the Oklahoma series, like all out of double drags. Like, think about all these different wrinkles. This is, and you literally see at the bottom right there when Jay was talking about the terminology, like you think about it too. Igor always said logical connection, right? So for a player, because we always think our players, they can't retain all this stuff. But Oklahoma, okay, that's the double drag series. Quick, okay, that means I'm setting a wide pin. Touch, okay, that's a hot potato exchange. Okay, shoulder, that's the Spain action on the pick and roll, right? Like, it's all segmented. Like, it's unbelievable. I mean, if you gave this dude an actual roster, this guy is as much of a chess player when it comes to basketball as you can be.
You'll see on my control at the bottom, this is an hour and 31-minute tape of tightly, cut up video that are just his wrinkles. And again, I'm telling you all this, we won 19 games and got fired after the first year, but it's about the Jones, and we can all get something off of this, right?
Hey, one thing too that I think is so interesting is, like, okay, if you want to be a hard team to scout, if you come out of a timeout and you're in the same formation as something you run high volume, like, how is that wrinkle going to be scouted, right? Like, if all your ATOs are different formations, now all of a sudden, okay, if they put the 4-man over here coming out of a timeout, we know what play they're running. right? So this was so hard. Like, people can't scout this stuff.
Any other questions so far? All right, so this is
Jason, I got this is Jeremy.
Go
And Cody, maybe you can answer this too because you're at the college level now. Like, what are some actions and stuff that you guys have discovered that, Cody, I guess you can answer maybe right now, that doesn't really work too much or translate and as effective at the college level because of guys being able to sit on the split line and stuff like that?
To be honest with you, and I mean, Jay can still talk to this. This dude watches every different level. I mean, I think he stole a play from like an NAIA girls game that we ran with the Suns and got a TJ Warren corner three. But like, to me, honestly, I think it all translates. I really do. Like, a lot of people are going to say because of the no defensive 3 seconds that some of this stuff is not stuff you can do. And I disagree with that element actually, because my position is a lot of this stuff that we were doing and that you see in the NBA is coming from Europe, right? And that's where Igor was. And you can also still be in the lane, unlimited amount of time or whatever defensively at that level too. So I think that, that I haven't found many that don't work that I see executed at the NBA level.
And Jeremy, I'll talk about that in a couple clips because we're going to get into the delay series, which is another early offense. But, I think you're seeing this a lot more, at least the games I turn on in college where, you hit the 5-man as the trailer and he's a playmaker, right? Just like you watch Golden State, it's hit the 5, you can split, you can flare, you can pin down. You're giving players more freedom out of it as opposed to just go run the play. You know what I mean? So we'll see some of that coming up. Last one, I won't bore you anymore. There's the Oklahoma. There's the quick. There's the touch. And here's the shoulder, the back screen. I mean, we had all kinds of stuff. So hopefully you can kind of see, we had a young team, right? And some people may say, oh, you guys were too cute offensively. You had all these plays, but challenge your guys, like once they get the concepts down, they can do it. Stick with them, work through it and be creative.
As you keep going, Jay, touch a little bit on, I know we talked about this yesterday, but and every place is different, but what touch is, what a shoulder is, and how those things, no matter what series you're in, those things still apply because it's part of your offensive terminology.
No doubt, like drill the shoulder, which is the back pick, the Spain action. Drill it in practice, just like we saw on the draw and kick stuff. Drill that action, drill the shoulder, drill the touch, which is just a wide pin down. And then challenge your guys in a practice setting where you may call a set and add that wrinkle on at the end so they have to think and get into it quickly. It's all, once you know the action, you just tie it together. And it doesn't have to be 4 actions. It can be just a touch, just a wide pin down, wide pin down, curl, play out of it. It can be, here's a great early offense. Most of you guys know what pistol is, right? It's just early offense. A lot of teams run it after a free throw. And here's a number of wrinkles off of it, all right? Going to hit Troy Daniels. I'll take him in horse any day of the week. All right, here's the delay stuff, Jeremy. This is what I was talking about. You're seeing a lot of NBA teams do this and just playing. You're seeing a lot of colleges when I watch it doing this. All right, so we're going to hit DeAndre, and it's just 5 out, right? That's all it is. You have nobody playing in the paint. You've got 5 guys on the perimeter. And there's a lot of, freedom and movement out of this. So Josh Jackson right here comes to set a screen on Cannon. He just slips out of it and gets a layup.
Jay, how much would you say, I'm watching the game a lot, and I love what Denver does out of the 5 out, playing a lot of splits, playing a lot of stuff with touches, with, the 2-man games. And I'm seeing the game, obviously, because of the lack of the big man, where traditionally, in college, you're going to have a secondary break. You're going to run the 5 to the rim, But I'm seeing in the NBA, you guys are doing more of this stuff than that. How much would you say of the NBA is playing more of this as, that's not playing more of this?
I told Brian before the call, I said in the last 5 years, you could used to go to a game and scout it or watch it. Pat Riley was coaching, Rick Carlisle still to some extent, but you can name coaches like that, and they're going to call 40 different plays. I can go to a game now and in some games get 3 play calls. It's playing out of this action right here, right? And Portland's really good at it. You mentioned Denver. I'm going to mention with Jokic, I'm going to mention Draymond Green. Well, do people understand that Draymond Green during the Warriors run led that team in assists in 4 of 5 years? So he's the playmaker at the top of the floor. All those, Curry, Thompson, Durant, when he was there, got so much attention, and it was always tricky, right? We played the Warriors 3 straight years. Two years when I was in Houston and my 1 year in Portland. Those guys sent me home 3 straight years during their run. And we always had the dilemma in the coaches meeting is, what are we going to do with Draymond Green? Because, he's really the 5th option offensively on the floor, and you want him shooting as much as possible. But we found out that when you sagged off of him at the top of the floor and let him just see the floor, he was going to pick you apart. And so you want him shooting, but he was killing you the other way. So, and listen, when you pressured him, he was still a tough cover. But my point being is, he was the playmaker. Jokic is the playmaker for Denver. Marc Gasol has been a playmaker. Like, that's what's great about this. And this is what I challenge you guys to do in skill development is have your 5s work on their ball handling and passing ability. Because, they have to guard this stuff. It's hard to guard 5 out if you've got a playmaking center at the top of the floor.
And it's
Yeah, and I'll piggyback on this. Like Lamont, the thing that I love about that too is like you talk about the rim run element, right? Like, to me, what I saw Igor do, and what I see a lot of these NBA teams doing too now is pulling the goalie right, get X5 above the free throw line as much as possible, like Jay was talking about, because now that's the rim protector, right? We're so used to settling our big guys down in these dunk spots, and all we're doing is placing X5 in front of the rim, right? Like, why? And we say, oh well, just because he can't shoot, right? Well, I mean, he's got gravity, I feel like, and that's like Jay's saying, like, think about that Draymond Green, like, conundrum. But, like, now let's say even take, like, a bad player, right? He's still got some level of gravity somewhere, wherever he's at. If he's a non-shooter, I still feel like you watch the Bucks. Jay can talk about the Bucks 5 out, but, like, they put their big man in the corner, like, they're just filling spots, totally random. And, like, with the 5 is in the corner and he catches it and he's a non-shooter, well, he's just going to go uphill dribble handoff to whoever's on the slot area. You know what I mean? And they're still going to figure out different ways to get 2 on the ball. But my point being is that they're doing everything they can to get X5 out of the paint.
Yep, good point.
No, I thought, looking back, we played a lot of splits at San Diego, and, it was a little bit more prescribed than this. And we started going to some 5 out late our 3rd year. But we had a lot of interchangeable parts. Like, our 5-man was really like a 3-man. He's an undersized guy who could bring it. But that's when we caused people the most problems, because now we're putting their centers in split actions that haven't guarded that before. Just, because they're typically known to guard a 5-man that's going to go down to the block. But I think part of it too is that what you said, Jay, is the development piece, being able to have those guys in different places. But then I think the bigger part of it, and this is just my opinion, is college guys want to control everything. We want to control everything. We want to script it. We want to make sure and that's not really how the game is played if you're really going to read and react and do what the defense tells you to do. And it's more of what you said is concepts, in my opinion, concepts and knowing, hey, we're going to do this if they do this. And I think that, though, is how the game is evolving. I think college will eventually get there, in my opinion.
So here's the same play, just to piggyback what you're saying. I just rewound it, but I'm going to walk through different options that you can drill as coaches and different options out of this play. So when you hit DeAndre, Josh comes up to set the flare. You can actually set the flare and play, or do what Josh did and slip, okay? On the other side of the court, where Ariza's at, you can wide pin down, okay? That's Mikal Bridges in the corner. You can wide pin down with him coming off. That's a very difficult action to guard because his man is off of him, okay? Get a DHO and turn the corner. Or, I wish I had more clips to show you, but Ariza could screen for Mikal curl tight and get out, and then come back and Ariza get it. So, Lamont, just to piggyback off you, different guys in different positions, right? And be imaginative. That is Nick Nurse's, one of his greatest traits as a coach. He is not afraid to do this kind of stuff. And you see when Toronto, like in the playoffs, they're very good, but like he's willing to take risk and do this. But he's not just doing it willy-nilly. He practices it. I think as coaches, a lot of times, you're right. We want to control. We want to come down and let everybody see us call, 40 plays and, hey, I'm the man, I'm in charge. But players want to play with freedom, but you gotta, it's the song and dance. You got to play with freedom, but you got to have some structure as well, right? And we're trying to find that.
Will you talk a little bit as you kind of keep going through this, Jay, about how the NBA's kind of evolved to that place of more freedom with structure versus just kind of running the set, or, you know, and obviously the innovation with having guys 5 out and having your forwards be playmakers and just things like that. I know you touched on it, but if you don't mind, kind of talk about how it was, because you've been in the league for so long, and then kind of how it's evolved.
I would say 10 to 12 teams are running this primarily as their offense, what I'm showing through the 5, all right? And another important point to Lamont's point earlier about player development, okay? You've got to, as coaches, you've got to drill DeAndre Ayton on his dribble handoffs that, you know, you got to work on that. He's got to dribble at the defender. He can't just, part of the play is I'm going to DHO. No, you've got to dribble at the right angle at Booker's defender so he can come off the DHO and turn the corner. You know, it's all the little details within the 3-man actions that make it work, right? We know this, but we've got to stay on top of the details. All right, here's one action I wanted to show you. This is an example of kind of challenging your guys. All right, we hit DeAndre. When we call touchdown, we're setting a screen for the big, all right? And so just go set a random screen for your 5 guys sometimes. Give him a little confidence, throw him a bone. I mean, he fumbles it there, but you get the right guy, he can turn the corner and get downhill. One other action here I want to show you, all right? Pistol New York. So this is another action. When we say New York, that's going to be a screen and rescreen action, all right? So all Igor did is just call it like, hey, we want to get a shot here for Jim or Fredette, all right? That's who we were playing with at the end of the year. So pistol hit, hand back, flare. This isn't a very clean clip, but you get the point. Shot, okay? Here's another action. Pistol 3 we ran. Hit, clear the corner up top, clear that corner, and this is a lob play for Josh Jackson. Come flying off that. Lob's not there, swing it in a pick and roll. Be creative. Here's another example of it.
I've seen that this play right here, pistol 3, right? Like Tulane runs this high volume, but pause right here. You see how Igor puts Kelly Oubre up in the high quad and cuts, I don't know if that's Ellie, whoever he cuts through, right? Like Tulane would always leave their guy over in that far right corner. Well, we had built-in help if you're just going to leave your dude over there, right? So like Igor is like moving these guys around on the board. You know what I mean? Like it's like chess pieces. So that way, the minute the big guy drops back, if he doesn't have anything, and this one right here, you know, I think Rashawn's going to go screen Booker, right? So now all of a sudden, now pause right there, like he's not attached at the point of that screen, right? So like there's no coverage by Embiid.
And you know, you talked about it earlier, Lamont. What do we do? What's our philosophy when we're up against the clock, right? Like, what are we telling our guys, whether it was high splits or whatever? This is a play that has two options, right? The first option is the lob, and then we tell them if it's not there, swing it in a pick and roll, right? Just swing it, you know, be decisive. Don't tap dance around and like, what are you doing? You know, like just get into it.
Right. So you could be, because you could say, hey, we're going to run that play, whatever it was, and then hey, we're going after that. We're going into a high split.
Exactly.
Instead of him ball screening, he runs into the top, high split it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's the lob right there. That's a big ATO play for Dallas. And I'll show you one more here. This is
I love this wrinkle right here. This wrinkle's awesome.
Pistol 3 points. So we're in pistol, hit, clear the corner, lob option, not there. Now we're going to set a high screen for the shooter. See how creative that is?
Yeah, you see where old boy, big man Jared Allen, like he's so far back because he's trying to provide protection on the lob, and now it's a naked pin up at the high quad, that wide screen.
He has some good stuff. Lob's not there. Get him. They top block Book. Then we just play. One more.
So kind of on that one, Jay, your big was not a if you don't mind going back a little bit, your big was not a great passer. So it looks like they end up skipping to him and he drives a closeout because he's more of a driver. So I think the perception, and just tell me what you guys' thoughts are in the NBA, is that you can only play 5 out if you have a guy who's skilled enough to make those decisions as a passer, but there's also other ways you can use him in the 5 out.
True, and I think everybody. I mean, who are you going to guard on the court if you're the other team? You're going to be draped on Devin Booker, right? Like if you're playing against the team in the white, and you know Rashawn Holmes is not skilled. So I give Utah credit, like they kind of knew what was coming, and then kind of made Rashawn be a playmaker, right? Because they're just draped all over Book. But as we all know, you gotta adjust on the fly and just try to make it happen sometimes. Just give those guys credit.
Hey Jay, and so now I'm looking at this a little bit more. In this series, a lot of times because you're clearing out that backside help when you go for Kelly Oubre or whoever for that lob, it's going to always be when you swing a middle ball screen because the guy has to help for the lob because there's no backside help and you're running into a naked middle ball screen.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We're trying to get him to take a step or two, which good defensive teams would do, right? To honor that.
Yeah, that's good stuff, man.
Advantage of it. I'm going to show you the pistol 4 and we'll be done. All right, so Book's going to set the step up. All right, I want you to watch Ariza right here. So there's no hidden punches. The four-man is TJ Warren or Ariza. You see how we have like a double action and they top lock Ariza? Maybe not a good example for you guys to understand. Here we go. That's more New York. And then we had a pistol 5 also. Yeah. Ball screen rip for a post up. Again, I hope I'm just giving you some like things to think about. I don't, you can look at all these plays and say, oh, I'm going to put all this in. I think it's dependent upon your team, your personnel, right? Like you got to decide if you don't have a center like DeAndre Ayton, it's not worth running a post-up play. But I think there's all sorts of wrinkles along the way that if you put so-and-so here, so-and-so there, that you can get something off this video.
Is there anything out of the chin stuff you wanted to show real quick, Jay, before
I can show you real quick. Yeah, let me just
if you don't mind.
Sure. Just got to fast forward here. Okay.
Yeah, well, he's doing that too. That one on that pistol 4 too. We saw that. I love that double split action that we called it Bilbao, like the one where they top locked Trevor. Like you can go over the top, and that's great. I think it's great out of the post action. Utah's really good at that stuff. It's a double stagger split out of like essentially like a post up or like with the ball deep in the corner.
Yeah, you can play the game and curl the guy. Both guys get him. A lot of options. All right, last thing, guys. I appreciate everybody being engaged in the questions. I think this is great. We had one of our big series was the Chin series, and just a little background around that. This was something that we kind of evolved with the Georgian team when we coached overseas. And the great thing about the Chin, a lot of you guys run this, is it kind of evolved for us coaching the Georgian team. We didn't have a great point guard, but we had kind of an undersized 2 guard that could also handle it. And so out of the wide pin down action, our undersized 2 guard a lot of times was our best playmaker. So we would try to put those guys in positions to then get into the middle ball screen or different options that I'll walk you through. It's a great series if you've got kind of 2 combo guards, and maybe not a traditional great, frontline point guard. So this is something that evolved from us, and we kept adding to it every year and kept adding wrinkles and had a pretty good series out of it. So here's what I'm talking about: regular chin. Book's going to come off this high screen or this wide pin down. I'm sorry, he should be a little bit lower in the corner, but he's going to catch it. First option is the back screen cut by Ayton. The over the top pass, if that's there, go for it. That's the first option. Chin 1. This is a messed up play, so my apologies. Let's go to the next one after this. Thought I went through all this stuff, but we have so many damn plays. Chin one. All right. Wide pin down. Troy Daniels cuts. And we're going to come back and get Troy. So our call with chin one, it's for the one man. That's the simplicity of it. If you see a shooter, you have a mismatch, use the player's position number to make the play call. Chin point. We hit book off the pin down. Mid pick and roll. Then we're going to go get the four man and have him turn the corner. It's a great option. I'm going to run this back. I really like this play. Wide pin down.
We need more of this stuff in college basketball, like slipping out of a ball screen and setting a screen on the next guy.
And
it's
look,
hard to guard.
TJ Warren's one of the craftiest four men and kind of hard man to defend because he's such a bucket getter and he's such a we moved him to the four for the first time in his career, but he was really good at getting downhill and making a play as a four man. He lived in that mid-range area. Here's another example of it. Wide pin down, first option, over the top, not there. Mid pick and roll. Wide pin. Spacing's not great on that clip. Chin Oklahoma. So what does that mean? What is Oklahoma? We talked about it for 20 minutes. That's a double drag, right? So this is a prime example. Chin, Oklahoma. Wide pin down. That's not the right action. It would be a double drag out of it. Here we go. Okay, we actually changed the play call middle of the year. My apologies. All right, this was Oklahoma. It was a 5-on-4 pin down. Wide pin down, chin cut, ball screen, and then we're gonna get the four man for a jumper. We called this Oklahoma earlier in the year. My apologies. So ideally, that would be a shot for Ryan Anderson coming off. I'll run it one more time so you guys, I butchered that one. All right, here we go. This plays for Ryan Anderson. Wide pin. We're into chin. Chin cut. Middle ball screen. And that's just like our point earlier, right? We called it Oklahoma earlier in the year. This is Flagstaff. So we called this was our high ball screen action, or split screen action. So Lamont, to your point earlier, we had a call for the high splits. It was Flagstaff. So we ran chin Flagstaff, wide pin, chin cut, hit the high post, into splits. So drill your Flagstaff action, your three-man actions, you can add it to chin. Here's another example. TJ just bulled his way. I really like this one too because you got almost like a 5-out spacing, right? That's what it turns into.
You got that stampede, as Cody would say. You're going to try to get that guy playing downhill.
Yep. Well, I think we'll have one here in a minute. All right. So what did we say earlier? Quick was wide pin down. So put it together. Chin. It's going to be normal chin. Quick. Pause. So right there, we have our chin cut. What is the guy on the top of the screen, guarding Kelly Oubre, normally going to do after he sees chin 5 times? He's kind of relaxed, got his hands on his knees, doesn't think it's coming to him. That's when we call quick. And Kelly, being a left-hander in that corner, this is a great play for him to get to his left hand. He's really good at that. I'm going to run that again so you guys can see that. So know your team's personnel and tailor your sets to it.
Hey, Jay, is getting X5 guarding multiple actions a point of philosophy as well? Would you say? Because now he's guarding a pin cut, he's guarding a pin down.
Exactly.
Then a pin down, he's guarding maybe the one-touch bounce.
No doubt. I mean, and we know that there's a lot of kids that break down on the second action and a lot more that don't make it to the third action before they just, making multiple reads, multiple efforts. There's a lot of guys that don't do that. So that's a great point, Jeremy. But if you've got a left-handed player, think of something like this for him, right? You don't really know that it's coming. You set a wide pin down, he comes off to his left hand, and he can get to the paint. There's another example. That time they shoot the gap, shoot the three. All right. Chin, quick, New York. So let's conceptualize it. Chin action, quick, which is a wide pin down. New York.
Rescreen.
Which is a flare rescreen. All right. Here we go. Hit. Chin cut. Wide pin. We didn't get to there's the New York right there. This was an ATO play, okay? So I don't want to overload you guys. I'm just trying to show you how to be creative, all right? Because a lot of you guys are probably saying, shit, this is too much. We tried to challenge our guys. Wide pin down. This was an off the board play that we worked on that morning. Because everybody just loaded up on Devin Booker, guys. Like it got to be a point where, I mean, if you're going to beat the Suns, you had to shut Booker down, you know? So we had to try to be creative and find ways to get him open. All right, chin clear. Yeah. It's in a great clip. Mikhail needs to get out. That was the first play. That wasn't a very good one. All right, last one I'm going to show you. Chin 45. TJ Warren, number 12. So we always start it with the 4 pinning down for the 2, right? What do you think chin 45 means when we call the number for the players? It's going to be 4 and 5 involved. Just in rocket science. Just follow the numbers. Instead of pinning down, we're going to hit TJ this time. He's in it. And we're going to play a 4-5 pick and roll, which is hard to guard. What are teams going to do? Are they going to switch that? Well, TJ can guard most 5s. I'm going to run it one more time. Just simple. It looks like you're in your regular chin set, but you're going to run chin 45. So instead of TJ pinning down, he's just going to catch it. We're going to chin cut right in the mid pick and roll. And last one. This is the Spain action that we talked about earlier. So we're going to set shoulder means rib screen. So chin, shoulder, chin, wide pin. Pin down into it. Now Book's going to come get Rashawn Holmes on a back screen. Lob, if they help off of him, then Book should be popping wide open. See that? Mm-hmm. A lot of actions to guard, to Jeremy's point. You're putting a lot of pressure on X5 and the guy helping him.
And that's the thing, too. A lot of teams will walk it up and run this play in college basketball. I've seen it. It's relatively ineffective because of the walk-up element. Like, this is masked within the chin series. Hey, can we show them Charlotte, by the way? That's one of my – we ran that here, and it scored almost every time. Charlotte. Thanks, Chin, Charlotte.
Let me find it. I mean, you can see all these plays we got, right? We've got a good – all right, one thing I want to talk about real quick before we get to Charlotte. So another terminology we had, anytime we called X, that was our term for dribble handoff. So if we call X chin, what are we doing? We're just going to run a dribble handoff to the wing and get in chin. Pretty simple, right? DHO, in the wide pin down, in the chin. Wasn't run the cleanest, but you see how the verbiage just ties in together when you know what the action is? We say X chin 1, so we're going to dribble handoff. Troy Daniels is now the pseudo 1. He's going to come off and get a rescreen. Just another way to be creative. All right, last, I'm going to find that Charlotte and I'll be done here. All right, X chin Charlotte. This is a great play because what this play does is we do our cute chin stuff. Everybody knows what's coming. But when we get in a pick and roll, the help defender, normally knows, well, I've got to be ready to help on the chin pass. I can kind of be lazy and be in my spot. All right. So we have a play called X chin Charlotte, which X means dribble handoff. Chin. Charlotte. All right, so let me run it back and explain the Charlotte part. Charlotte means 4 and 1 are going to cross. And why do they cross? Because when they cross, we take their man out of help position, and there is no tag guy on the pick and roll. Watch Elliot Kobo at the top of the screen. He dribble hands off, he gets out. Okay? He's going to the opposite corner. Trevor Ariza setting the wide pin down. After he sets it, he's going to the opposite corner. There is no tag man to help. All right? Now, the execution wasn't great, but I think you can get the point. We end up getting DeAndre the ball right at the rim. Here's one. X, dribble handoff, chin, wide pin down, wings cross, turn the corner, lob. You see that? Let's look at that one again. That's a great example.
Yeah, this play is undefeated at confusing who's the low man, right? Because these dudes these guys, when they inevitably cross, they chase their man. Like this concept to me is undefeated.
Yeah. Just conceptualize the 1 and the 4. 4 always sets the wide pin down and chin. All right. So in this play, 1 and 4 are going to cross and go to the opposite corners. Set it. Get out. Get out. There's nobody to help on Rashawn Holmes. Jaylen Brown was running with his man, and he's late. See that? He's running the corner. There's another example.
And even if he stayed, that guy can make that shot in the corner. He's wide open 3.
Exactly. But notice, ball's on the right side of the floor. Ball's on the left side. Ball comes back. I mean, that ball touches 3 sides of the floor, basically, right? This is a big play for us.
Quarantine movie reference, I started calling it Sex Panther because 100% of the time.
My man.
So that's it. Is there any questions? I could go on for days, but I don't want to bore you guys just hearing me talk.
Hey, Jason, 2 things. This is Jeff Bowles. Number one, a lot of times some NBA coaches, if they score on one play, they keep running it.
Right.
What was your philosophy with, teams you've been with?
Yeah, Jeff Van Gundy, old school Knicks, right? If he scored on 5th down, you're going to see it 9 straight times. And
run it until they stop it, right?
Yep. I mean, I think that's a feel as a coach. And I'm showing you all these plays, and it looked like Igor, just had 200 plays, and let's be cute and call 198 of them this game. He was pretty smart. When we had something going, he was going to milk it. But to his credit, I think he had a lot of different options to get that same guy looks. You know what I mean? So I think it's probably comfort level and philosophy and how comfortable you are as a head coach. I can't speak. You've been a head coach and been successful, but I think I've been on different staffs that have done it both ways.
And what about Igor? Coming to the NBA is a different game, than European spacing. I feel like Europeans, you utilize all 5 guys on the floor.
Yes.
Where NBA, you might try to get 2 or 3 guys a shot. How different was that for him to adjust what he wanted to do? Did he have to change to the NBA game, kind of like David Blatt did, and kind of didn't work out for him either?
Well, to his credit, though, Igor's been in the NBA for 15 years, right? So he's really good at the summers. He was the head coach with the Georgian team, but he's been around the NBA, so he kind of knew what could work. And he also put that European influence in there. And he's the guy that really helped Quinn Snyder at Utah from the start when they got there. I mean, you see a lot of their actions. That's a lot of stuff that Igor helped bring to the table. And Quinn, really utilized him. And Quinn's a great coach. I'm not taking away from him, but if you watch Utah, you see his influence a lot in a lot of the stuff that they've done. So yeah, I mean, it's for just a Serbian coach to come over here, I think it'd probably be hard, not knowing the lay of the land until you're in it in the NBA. But, Igor, he was with Larry Brown when they won a championship in Detroit. He's worked for some great coaches. He worked for Flip Saunders.
This is great stuff. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, I hope you guys have gotten something out of it. I love doing it.
Jay, how did you guys go into games with all this stuff, though? Was it do you have a script in terms of packages you want to get to certain teams and stuff, or? I
mean, I don't want this to come across as this is a know-it-all coaching clinic when I'm showing you a million plays. All right. So we worked we would put a couple play, obviously our base offense in training camp, right? We would build off that. We would kind of had our structure. And then as we go along, you know, you have 3-4 weeks of the preseason, you put a play or two in a week, but challenge yourself. Like, we have all these plays, but it's the concepts when you tie it together. So once you master what quick is, once you master what shoulder is, once you master what chin is, then you can get a little cuter, right? So if I just showed you, you know, our playlist, you'd be like, these guys are nuts. But it really wasn't. Once you got comfortable, it wasn't like off the chart.
Was it that easy for the players though? Like I understand what you mean as far as, like, I guess coaches in terms of, you know, like you said.
Yeah, I'll say this, right? What it ties in together is like Jay's like, so Jay would write a scouting report, right? And it'd be like War and Peace, you know what I'm saying? And then we get together in the morning, and Jay would know exactly how the Portland Trailblazers are going to guard all our stuff. And so then Igor is putting together the menu for the night. All right, that term resonated with me, was that this is the menu, right? We're not having shrimp cocktail every night, you know, Taco Tuesday, whatever it is. So like, I loved the way Igor termed it, and like all of our stuff was in like families, but then the families, like Jay said, like had that logical connection to where like the scoring action out of the timeouts was one thing, but other than that, like the normal family was like that shell that he talked about, he put in at training camp, that was like the concept, you know what I mean? And so that the way it got all tied together was how I think everything made sense to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Jeremy.
Can I add something on that too, Jeremy? You know, I think guys, and I've coached at a lot of places that you would say not so you wouldn't have educated players, smart guys, but man, kids will retain what they want to retain, what's important to them, man. You know, like my mom's she's an old minister, man. And you know, when I was a kid, you know, she said, son, you're going to learn this Easter speech. You know, I'm from old school Baptist church, and I didn't know the Easter speech. And so she put it in a Sony Walkman on repeat for me. And I had to learn my speech, man. And so I had to learn it. So I say that to say, you get these kids, man, they know everything about an Instagram, a cell phone, a rap song that we don't even know the words. They know, because you can't even understand the words, but they know every single word because it's important to them. So if you can make that a part of what you're doing basketball wise and have it organized, I think we give them more of an out than they should have. Now, am I saying, hey, you know, 10,000 plays like the NBA? No, that's crazy, because those guys, they know how to play too. It's just you're getting a different caliber player. But I think we also worry about that a little too much. We can give them more, man. It's like, I don't know if you remember, but when Kobe Bryant was talking about his team, you know, his little Mamba, and he said, hey, we're coaching them like they're on the Lakers. We're giving them, they're playing in the triangle. We're doing stuff. And so kids can retain, man. I'm telling you, they can retain.
And I think you'll agree, they're really going to remember the plays that are for them. So if you got a good player, they're going to know the 8 or 9 plays that you've got for them. They're going to retain that, right? So I think it's expectations, it's standards, it's holding them accountable. And again, I think Coach Bowles makes a great point. If I run fist down and I score 8 straight times, why the hell do I need 99 other plays? I mean, it's a valid point, right? So you as a coach have to weigh, you know, retention and all that. But, you know, I couldn't agree with Lamont more. I think we give these guys an out on too many times, and like, I think we need to challenge them a little bit.
Got it. Thanks, Jeff.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I know you guys. I'm sorry, Adam Hood, UTSA. You guys obviously had a lot of plays. How many formations are we talking here? Just rough.
Well,
you don't have them, but
I mean, we had our chin stuff. I showed you 25 examples out of just the Oklahoma, right?
Yeah, no, I'm talking about just a base formation, like the Oklahoma, the chin, the pistol, like those.
I would say we had 6 or 7 over the course of the year, but, you know, we didn't go down and call open and then chin and then Oklahoma. You know, I mean, like, we weren't willy-nilly all over the place. Again, it's a comfort level. You guys, your first, you know, hypothetically, first 5 games could really master the chin series and be drilling that other stuff. And then, you know, before you get to conference and teams haven't scouted you, I think, you know, dabble in something else, right? Like, you don't want to just go into conference running same play you did the first or second game of the year. So again, I hope I'm not like overloading you guys with too much stuff. I think it's just something to think about, right? Master one subset, master the drilling of it, the 2 or 3 man actions. And then you got to let guys play. I mean, we don't need them to be robots. It's not about how cute our playbook is, right? If you score on a high pick and roll 10 straight times, you don't need to run chin quick New York. I mean, you know what I mean? Like it's
Right.
Anybody else? I just want to say thanks to you guys, and I hope you got something out of it. And
we'll still open up for a few more questions. El, did you want to say anything first before we kind of?
Yeah, no, I think that was great, Jay. I think, just so much good stuff there from all of it. I do have one question for you. This is just, it's a personal question for you, but now you kind of been on both sides of it, in terms of front office and as a coach, and, kind of went up, down, and everywhere. What do you prefer and why?
I'm not going to lie to you. I missed the coaching, being out of it this year. I had a year left on my son's contract that actually runs out in about 22 days. So, and the Wizards allowed me to stay in it, and I'm happy if that's the route I stay on. But, I'm not going to lie to you. I missed the coaching, and I think I could help a staff. But, at this point in my life, like I know I can bring value in doing what I'm doing. So we know the landscape of the NBA. I mean, it's hard in general in coaching. You saw how many logos I've been there. You want an opportunity to, I don't know if you can say lay roots, but you want to have an opportunity to build a program. And that's what we were hoping when we came to Phoenix. And, it's crazy to say you got fired after 1 year, but you got to pick yourself up and move on. So we'll see what happens. I've got a lot of people I've worked for, but it's hard getting jobs. And I'll go back to what I said before. I think we have to use things like this to help each other, right? And like, this is good for me. This is like almost in a way like therapy talking basketball. I've never coached college a day in my life. I was a manager, but like I haven't, I hear all the stories about the recruiting. I'd have no problem being a college coach, but you just don't know where life's going to take you, right? Maybe something out of this leads an opportunity for somebody on the call. So I guess my philosophy is I miss the coaching, but my feet are where they're at right now, and whatever happens, I think opportunities will come.
That's great. We're certainly rooting for you, and hopefully here are all of our networks kind of grow and we can help each other. I do want to circle back and give some guys some shout outs, starting with Coach Tommy over at Lamar, man. Congratulations. You've been on this thing weekly, and congratulations. Just was honored one of the top 30 under 30 coaches in all of college basketball. Incredible achievement, man. Rooting for you and looking forward to watching your career grow. We got Vince, my guy Vince from A&M is on the line, man. It's been a while since
What's up, brother?
You're looking good, man. Looking good down there. Down there in God's country. I'm from Texas, so that's God's country, man.
Oh, no question. Absolutely. Good to see you, brother. Looking good. You're still in playing weight, man.
Yeah, man. It's called stress, man. It's called stress. Who else we got on here? We got Coach Boyles, man. Me and Coach Boyles, he may not even remember when he was at the Ohio State. We were at the Villa 7 together, and he had a quick stay at Stony Brook as a head coach, and now he's over at Ohio U. I believe it's his alma mater. He's done a terrific job, and rooting for him as well. And who else? We got Ryan Price on the line from Southern. I don't think he's been on with us before. Congratulations to him. He's doing a heck of a deal in terms of his Zoom, and Brian can say something more. I think he had 150 people on a Zoom the other day talking about everything that's going on in the world, and he's trying to impact our game and so on and so forth. But thanks for jumping on. I think we have Bobby Height on, whose agents is Jason, and Aiden is Dietrich Taylor. I've known Bobby for forever. He's a great dude based out of Atlanta. I want to make sure I don't miss anybody else. And the high school guys, man, love you guys. Keep jumping on. Coach Henderson, known Coach Henderson forever down there in Dallas, and Coach Wright's on too as well. And then all the other familiar faces, Coach Hood, Coach Gibson, everybody else that keeps jumping on, Coach Wilson. We appreciate everybody, man. Let's keep impacting this thing. Let's keep trying to help each other grow and helping our game.
Yeah, I'll give a great job, Jason. We'll keep you on for a little bit if you don't mind. I'll give Ryan the floor real quick to talk about it a little bit. He does a Tuesday night Zoom as well, talk some ball, but he's also done some stuff with Rising Coaches on some social justice. It's great to tune into. So I'll give him the floor real quick. Everybody else we'll pray real quick and close out after he talks. And then if you want to stay on and hang on with Jay and just kind of talk ball, we're going to talk a little bit longer, do a little overtime if you want, but you don't have to stay. So Ryan, go ahead.
I missed my I guess I missed my cue earlier, man. I was on the phone with Coach Woods just a second ago. I'm honored. Thank you first, B, for allowing me to be on today. Lamont, thank you for allowing me to be on. Yeah, we have a platform that we do on Tuesday nights. Some of you guys that are on here actually are participate on it. So it's Let's Grow. We do it every Tuesday night, 8 p.m. Central. This past Tuesday, we did something with Rising Coaches with Adam Gordon in terms of what's going on in today's society, today's world, in regards to, injustice and that type deal. So, but I would welcome anybody that wants to participate. Next week, we'll have some pretty cool guests on. Alvin Brooks, who obviously he has Be Ready twice a week. He'll be on Tuesday, as well as Penny Collins, the head coach at Tennessee State. So if anybody wants to get on, Brian gets the DM or he gets the link every week. So if anybody wants to get on, you're more than welcome to join in. So.
Yeah, Ryan is a part of I'm fortunate. I'm a part of Ryan's basketball family. I worked for his father, Tick Price, for 3 years. Had a great run and kind of got Lamar back going again. And Coach Price has done a tremendous job, winning about 20 games a year. And Coach has been in the game over 40 years. So he was on that social justice call the other day and said some really powerful things. And we just want to keep learning, keep growing, keep sharing, and keep connecting people to other people. So I'll bow heads and pray real quick, and we'll stay on for some overtime with Jason with any questions. Dear Heavenly Father, thanks so much for allowing us to have this blessing of a time together and to grow. Thank you for Jason and his knowledge, his experience, his detail. Thank you for Cody for jumping in and just adding his wisdom as well from the NBA level. And we just thank you for the opportunity to have this time to be able to grow and continue to get better for our players, for our programs, for ourselves. And we pray that you shine a light through us in what we do, and we make it about uplifting other people in unity and not just about ourselves. And we pray for this country. We pray for safety. We pray for togetherness. We pray for healing. And we just pray we can continue to move forward in this new normal of getting back to schools and getting back to life as we used to know it. We know it'll be different, but we just pray we can make a blessing of the storm and just keep getting better and better as we go forward and keep sharing and growing and supporting each other and more love and not hate. So we pray all these things in your name. Thank you so much. Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Coach Topper, thanks, brother.
Amen.
Yeah, feel free to stay on. Jay, I'll kick off the first question. I think the one question a lot of us have as we coach young men is what is it that you're looking for in evaluation of young men? Obviously, there's a potential and upside. Obviously, there's an athleticism some guys just don't have. But obviously, we all coach some guys that are probably weren't on an NBA radar that kind of made themselves NBA players. And then we have other guys that are supposed to be really great and supposed to have all this NBA, he's a pro, but they don't make it. So obviously there's a character component. Obviously there's kind of some intangibles, but what are kind of some of the more tangible things or efficiency things or things that are translatable to that level?
Well, I think, is he a guy that can make his teammates better is something that I personally hold in high regard, right? Like, there's a lot of talented guys who can go score you 15 or 20 points, but I want to know if a guy's going to be happy scoring 12 points and his team winning as opposed to scoring 24 points and, his team losing. And that's kind of a general answer, but my point is that kind of goes back to character, right? Like, is this guy willing to give of himself to help the greater good of the group? So that's trait-wise. I mean, of course, we all want the 7-foot wingspans and the 6'8" guys that can jump out of the gym and the versatility and all that. But when it boils down to it, is this guy about himself or is this guy, about helping others along the way? That's the cohesion of a team. That's what
What about even like to take it a step further from like an analytical standpoint, like synergy? Is there something like, are you looking for a certain efficiency, like a guy like McCullum from CJ from Portland? Like obviously he was a guy who was really good in pick and roll and he was really efficient. Are there things that even for a coach to say, like let's say Adam Hood, he's got a couple guys that are putting up major numbers, averaging 20 a game at UTSA. What is it that he should almost be telling his players? We know there's an efficiency component, but is there kind of something that you're looking for to say, okay, yeah, you have numbers, but this doesn't translate because of the lack of efficiency or the lack of shot selection or those kind of things?
Well, I think CJ is a good example, and guys at the lower to mid-major level on this call can kind of look at him, right? Like he played at Lehigh, and Damian Lillard played at Weber State, and I spent a year with both of those guys, and I'll never forget going in the gym in summer league, and I stayed at the hotel when I went to Portland, right? We had training camp there for a week, and then we were going to fly to Vegas for summer league. So I flew from Dallas, spent the week up there. I got to the practice facility, which was across the street from my hotel at 6:45 in the middle of July. And I got there, and Damian Lillard was drenched in sweat, like he had sweated out 10 gallons of water. And I'm thinking to myself, I've been very fortunate. I've been around James Harden, hadn't been around Booker at that point, but Michael Redd, Andrew Bogut, talented NBA players. But like, this is Damian Lillard. This is who he is. This is the guy that's won 2 playoff series with walk-off winning jumpers. And you know why he did it? Because he was in that gym at 6 o'clock in the middle of July when he didn't have to be. That's his work ethic. That's his character. And what you see is what you get. There's not any false bravado with Dame. He's one of the best professionals I've been around in 20 years in the NBA. And so my point is like, he did it at Weber State, right? He kept the chip on his shoulder, like kind of overlooked and under recruited and Big Sky. CJ did it at Lehigh. So I'm not a guy that's just going to go on synergy and say, oh, give me the top 5 guys in the assist to turnover ratio or the best 3-point shooters. I want the guys that got the guts like Lillard that's going to make get the most out of himself and get other guys around him better.
Awesome. Thanks, man.
I don't know if that's the answer you're looking for.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
What's what we're trying to find, right? Is leaders.
Yep. That's good. Thank you.
Hey, Jay, quick question for you. Just in terms of scouting, like creating your scouting report, how do you navigate that in the NBA in terms of how much information you're giving those guys?
Yeah, it's a great question, right? Because, we could be playing San Antonio tonight, and I could literally get a stack of papers this big of analytics on the Spurs. And we always had this debate, like, this information ain't going to win us the game. We've got to pull all the analytics, all the information we get from the cameras telling us, shot spectrums, whatever. We've got to condense it down to what the players can retain, right? And I think we didn't hit on that enough in the presentation, but like, we've never had more information at our fingertips than we do right now. But how do we, I don't want to say dumb it down, but how do we get it to a page or 2 pages of bullet points? And that's something as a staff, I think we've got to sit around in a room and really hammer out, what do we value, right? Like, I could give you a million analytics examples, but do we value assist to turnover ratio? Do we value, points per possession defensively? And everybody's different, right? But I think, collectively, the head coach has to then make a decision, like, this is kind of what our core principles are, and this is what we're going to do. So I've got a stack of papers that big in analytics. I've got a scouting report that one of my coaches or my scouts put together. And then I've got 5 games of video of the team's last games. How are we going to make all that work to give it to our players who we know have an attention span of maybe 5 minutes a lot of times in a team meeting, right? It's getting lower and lower by my experience. Like, guys just aren't like focused in like they used to be.
But here's what Jay does a good job of too, that he's hasn't touched on. Like, he takes all that information, and the dude's meticulous about finding like the perfect clip. Like, if we're going to defend something a certain way in a game, he's going to find like those 2 clips that show exactly how we want to do it. You know what I mean? And so when he showed to the guys, like, it's gonna reinforce his narrative. You know what I'm saying? So like, because you got a small attention span. So like, to me, like that's the thing that we got to do a better job as coaches. Take pride in finding those 2 clips. Like, take pride in that. You know what I mean? Like, because if you take pride in finding those 2 clips, now all of a sudden there's no confusion when you show it to the players. You know what I mean? Like, specifically from a video standpoint. And if anything I learned about being around Jay is there's so many NBA games. Like, Jay's not just going to watch like the last 5 games. Like, the dude's going to find like those 2 clips might be like imperative, right, on how we're going to guard something in the game. And so, I mean, he's just, you know, super detail oriented, right? So I think as college coaches, that's something that we can take away from a lot of these NBA guys, how detail oriented they are on that type of stuff. And Jay can touch on like Igor's process. Like, you know, we'd have to go in, and if it was our scout, we'd have to sit with him before the game. And I mean, it's very extensive.
That's great. That's great stuff, Cody. Appreciate that. Thanks, Jay. That's a great answer. Good question, Alex.
I'm a big video guy, right? And you know, Doc Rivers used to say it, the tape doesn't lie. It's a simple statement, but like the more evidence you have to support your point you're trying to get to a player and they can see it, I think's the better. So I would try to get tape to show them how we want to do it. And again, that's a delicate balance today because you want to show them what they did wrong, but a lot of guys, you know, can't handle that. And I think we're seeing it more that guys can't handle being called out in front of their teammates in a film session. Like there's a lot of sensitivity, right? Like you got to know each player pretty much on your roster. Like I can't call Brian Burton out in front of the team. He can't do it. I've got to grab him to the side and I've got to, you know, bring him in the coach's room and that kid's going to react better than Jordan, who, you know, I can rip his ass in front of the team and I'm going to light a fire under him and he's going to come out better for it. You know, we've got to know the makeup of our guys. But I think
I'm sorry, Jay, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
I was just saying, I think the video, to Cody's point, I'm a big believer in trying to show them, you know, and try to get your point across quick. Don't act like you're James Naismith, you know, like get to the point, tell them what's expected of them. This is how we're going to do it, and challenge them in the right way.
I just think this just popped into my head, right? Like that part of the reason why like a guy like Jay, so
lost you.
We lost you, Cody. We can't hear you.
Cody left. He went to Beale Street. Told you he was going to get some barbecue, man.
Oh, man. Jay, you got any questions for anybody, for any of us, just kind of in general?
No, I just, you know, in the chat room, I put my contact information, my email, and my phone number. Please stay in touch if you guys have any other questions or ideas, and I'm always available. A lot of you guys know my wife. She's the same way. And I would encourage you, you know, for your professional development to follow Katie, her podcast she's been on. Some of those are on her Twitter. And, you know, she's very good at like trying to prepare you for your next opportunity, right? It's networking. It's you know, interview type questions. She's always got good advice. And some of those podcasts are on her Twitter handle. So let me dig that up and I'll put it on there so you guys can.
Yeah, if you don't mind, add hers in there too.
Let me get it real quick.
If you don't know her, shame on you. You coaching college basketball. You trying to make moves.
She's a connector, you know, like it's hard in this business. We all have to help each other, right? And it's cutthroat at times. And, but you know, I think if you have a good heart and reach out to people the right way, they're willing to help you. You know, they're willing to help you. I'm trying to type this in here.
Jim, I know you're on here from Fairfield. I'm gonna call you out a little bit. So you've been on here. I know you're a smart guy. You're at Fairfield. I know you got a question for Coach while he's looking.
Staudt, how you doing? How's life in Arizona?
Jimmy was our intern in Phoenix. Jimmy on this call, and now he's the director of ops at Fairfield, right?
Yes, sir.
Been locked in quarantine, which for him, the last 3 months has to be painful. But glad you're on the call, Jimmy. What can I do for you?
Not much, man. Just happy to be a part of it. Hear you and Cody bring up some old videos.
A lot that you cut up for us, for sure. I'm going to type Katie's information on here, her Twitter, so you guys and gals can go research some of her old stuff. So just 1 second. That's her Twitter handle. Does anybody else got any more questions?
Cody, you back? You were saying something, Cody. We lost you for a second.
Yeah, and I was just saying at the pro level, man, like if you come in with like a wishy-washy clip or something like that, like these dudes are going to tear you apart. You know what I'm saying? Like, so you got to come in and like Jay's got to be able to have a conversation with Devin Booker or James Harden or whatever, right? So like they can sniff out bullshit from a mile away. So college level, what we say goes, man. Otherwise, you know what I'm saying? It's just a different power structure.
How hard is it for you guys, Jay, to get guys to do extra work? And do you structure that? Even like, you know, some of the guys that you maybe know, obviously the Devin Bookers of the world, they probably want to do it all the time. But the other guys, the role guys, or the guys that can kind of get from 11 wins to 13 wins, or those other guys, those marginal guys.
No, I get it. It's a good question. You know, I think number one, 18, 19, 20-year-old kids, they need structure, right? Like they don't know what a professional NBA work ethic should look like. No offense, nobody does until you get in it. Nobody knows what 82 games and the travel and, you know, being tired. And, you know, if I've worked for Kevin McHale, he said, if I didn't show up to play when I didn't feel like working, I wouldn't have been at 40 of my games a year. You know what I mean? Like learning how to show up to work on nights you're not 100%. Like the mental toughness, the fighting through fatigue, the grind. He used to just say, you got to love the grind. And man, it's hard in January in the NBA when you're trying to see that all-star break to get a little break, and the games keep coming. And you got to watch 5 games on your opponent, and that week you may have 2 preps. And you watch your game after you play it, and you get with your guys and watch edits. So I'm kind of all over the place on your question, but my point is we need to try 18, 19, 20-year-old kids they're not just going to show up at 3 o'clock for a 4 o'clock practice, right? So you try to kind of force feed them and trick them into that.
Yep.
And if you've got good leadership above them, veterans on an NBA team, junior or seniors that have been with your college program that can then kind of take the bull by the horns and say, hey, we got our extra shooting before practice at 3:30. You're coming with me. I think when it comes from a player, it means a heck of a lot. I mean, coaches talk all the time, but when you got that type of leadership on your team, try to challenge your guys to take some initiative. Scott Skiles had a great line. He goes, you want to know what a good team is? When I hear the players talking more than the coaches in the locker room, that's when you know you got something. And that's true. And that's not taken away from coaching, but we know guys look up to guys on their team that do it the right way. And some teams don't have that. It's not going to be that easy on every team, but we've got to try to develop that as freshmen, sophomores, have some continuity, and try to develop it internally, I think, to get that out of them. If they can get in a peer group and do it, I think it's huge.
Yeah, it seems like, the NBA is getting younger and younger. So, you guys having to teach how to be pros, and you don't have the veterans in the locker room like you used to, the Oakleys or the whoever it may be. Those guys are younger and younger too. So just curious, do you guys have like specific staff that kind of focuses on some of those things, or do you try to, what's kind of the things you try to do to even get those guys ready from the minute they're drafted or the minute they're acquired to your team? How do you get those guys? Because it seems like we're having the same battles, but you guys have such a bigger stage, and then they have so much more money, and they have so much more people pulling at them. So how do you manage that part?
Well, you gotta be really good internally, and you gotta have a plan, right? So, this is talked about when you draft a guy on draft night that's a high pick, and you map out so on our staff we had individual guys that we were responsible for, not just solely, but these are the guys we're touching on a daily basis. And I had Kelly Oubre and I had Troy Daniels. Every coach had 2 or 3 guys. And what we would do after the game is we would watch film from that previous game and kind of individually go over some things that they could have done better, and also try to highlight things that they did well, to try to give them a little boost and some good clips. But I've been with different staffs. It's done different ways. Some guys aren't assigned to everybody, and they want to kind of rotate it. But it goes back to how organized and what type of plan you have internally. I don't know how you college coaches think about that, but I'd be curious to hear different ways you guys do it.
Stouty, the question I have is going through kind of your process of evaluating players. Have you seen like their skills or habits that are like typically missing from the transition from college to NBA? Like when we had DeAndre, and he kept having the habit of hedging ball screens and not staying back and protecting the rim. Like, is there certain skills or habits you've seen over and over again that usually don't translate from college to NBA that they should know by the time they get to the NBA?
I don't know that I would zero in on what they're not doing, but I think we can't do enough work on fundamentals. Like having DeAndre master the DHO game, having DeAndre set a screen and roll every time and not muck up the spacing. You know what I mean? So I think you've got to kind of break down. You got to know your player. He may not be a 3-point shooter, but we want him to roll every time. As a staff, as a coach, you've got to break down. These are the 3 or 4 things that we want him to master. And we want to get really, really good at that before we go off and do 5 other things, So we want to establish this as a base. This is your expectations. You're a rim runner. You set screens, you roll, you get every defensive rebound, however it is, but have that conversation with your players and have it in front of the team. I think, I've heard Stan Van Gundy on a podcast. I think somebody said he would call out everybody's role in front of the team. How many people do that? Do you tell each of your players their role one-on-one, or do they hear it in front of the team? Because I think communication-wise, that's a point that needs to be hit on. Master the things, I call it the base, and then then branch out. I don't know that one thing necessarily translates to the other. DeAndre's different than another 7-footer. He's different than Jared Allen. So I'd try to focus on what he can do, get really good at that, and then, slowly branch out. That's my opinion, but you guys feel free to chime in.
Yeah, Mike, I have a quick question for you, Jay. If say you're in charge of an offense, I don't know, NBA or college, are you starting with the system, or are you starting with the players? Like, what do you think is most important? Because I've seen it both ways. Again, I've only been coaching college maybe 8 years, but I've seen it done both ways. I've seen our system, like, hey, this is what we're going to do, and we just get our ass whooped, but that is what we do. And then I've seen people now we've migrated our year 1 doesn't look anything like our year 4 because
It's a great point, right? It's like, what is your overall philosophy as an organization or a team going to be? And I'll use Minnesota as an example this year. Like, they went from Tom Thibodeau, a half-court, slow it down pace. They get a new president in Gerson who brings a totally different philosophy in. And, we're going to shoot threes, even though we may not have, 3-point shooters at every position, but this is what we're going to be known for. And going forward, we're going to teach it this way. We're going to get our roster, our players this way. So I think, if you have a little bit of rope, and for example, you take a college program of your own and they've been a running team, but you're more comfortable as a half-court team, I think you got to try to make it work with the players that are there, right? You're not just going to go in and have a crutch already made, like, the hell with it. We're going to win 5 games because these aren't my guys and this isn't my style of play. Like, not telling you that. Like, you got to try to make it work, but you got to, gradually implement your philosophy and how you want it done. And it's a constant battle at the NBA level. Like, whenever there's change, like, what are you going to do? And you're not going to be very good at times. And, it's a drastic change from shooting all threes to no threes. The guys are they got to be rewired, and it's a you got to communicate that with your boss, and at the NBA level with your owner, say, hey, this is what we're committed to. It may not work right away, but just know in year 2 or year 3, we're going to start seeing some dividends. So it's, I like you, I've seen it both ways. I think it's just the philosophy of the head coach and and the
But
communication.
what would you do though if you would say you got a program? How would you, from your experiences, which one are you focusing more on?
I think I want to play. I want to play faster, but again, it's playing fast and not just getting 53s up and giving up 60 points in transition because I'm shooting more threes than you. Today's game's more open, more fast paced, more threes, more up and down. But you got to kind of control the controllables of what you want. It's hard, right? I mean, you gotta clearly state your vision and stay on them, because if there's not success early, we know a lot of guys start rolling their eyes and they start questioning the coach, right or wrong. So I think you gotta have your philosophy. You gotta sell it. That's the greatest thing about Doc Rivers. He's the best communicator, best salesman, best. You feel like anything he says, you're ready to run through the wall for him, and that's the ability of his communication. You gotta believe it with conviction, and it's a daily battle.
Yes.
Jay, thanks so much again, man. I'll let El say a little bit, and then we'll get out of here. But thanks so much again for coming on, man. Awesome stuff. We had the most people we've had on here with over 90 people, which has been great. So thanks for breaking down the behind the scenes of the NBA, the offensive stuff, and just being an open book, man. Not many people that are at that level and have achieved what you have are that down to earth. So we appreciate it. We appreciate your detail, your communication, and your openness, man. And hopefully anybody that's on this call will still stay in touch with Coach and definitely be pulling for you in your career. I look forward to continuing to develop our relationship too, man.
All right. I appreciate you guys, and my information's there. Feel free to reach out anytime, and wish all you guys the best. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jay. Thank you. Appreciate you, man.
Thanks a lot, man. Appreciate it, bro.
Yep. Thanks, Jay.